For rookie as well. So
All right. Thank you very much. Welcome to Fantastic Dimensions. This is just kicking off a series of conversations that's going to be happening across several YouTube channels and several GMs within the One Shot group. It's an idea that we had kicked around a lot in the past. I know I had talked about it with Juice and Nerdarchist Dave before, but we just never really got around to doing them. And then Chelsea recently joined the group. Hopefully she'll join us a little bit later. And she kind of reintroduced the idea, and I guess people just had the time or were motivated to do so. So here we are. We're kicking it off. So in case you don't know me, I'm Ian. I've been running D&D games, since I was 8 years old, about 30 years ago. But I took about 10 years off, 9 years off, something like that. So I actually have probably about 20 years of dungeon mastering experience. But yeah. So welcome to the Hangout. How you doing, Barker?
I am always good. Always.
Good.
Even when I'm bad.
Barker's a pretty seasoned GM too, I think, aren't you?
Let's see. Yeah, man. It's been probably 12 years now.
Awesome. So, Soren,
I was totally sucking.
What's that?
I sucked for about 10 years of that.
Well. Only 10? Are you sure?
Yeah, burn, sick burn.
Oh, sorry, I couldn't help it. That's all right. I've been sucking for more than you have, so it's all good.
No,
Soren, anyway, introduced himself briefly there, also known as Flo. I just call you Soren because of your Google Plus handle, but Flo here considers himself a rookie game master.
Yeah, I'm your friendly neighborhood avatar of hate. Yeah, I'm one of the rookie gems. Mostly I do Shadowrun and World of Darkness stuff.
That's cool because those are both games that don't seem to get a lot of attention in the one-shot group. So we need more GMs for those systems,
Exactly, for
Yeah.
sure.
What about you, Anthony? What's your story?
well, I've been into sort of miniatures a lot, and I'm just starting to like GM, I guess. One second.
Cool. Very good.
Cool. Yeah, dude, you all have to start somewhere. And the coolest thing, I do music, and it's the same philosophy with gaming and music, is that you can never learn it all.
Yeah.
Like, there's always, never seen everything, and there's always room for improvement. So, yep. Like Ian said, man, I still suck to this day.
Oh man, I still run some pretty shitty sessions myself from time to time. So
You have to. Even if you're the best GM in the world, you got to run some crap. Like, and that's just the way things are, man. And that's what makes all the good games great.
yeah,
After it's worth it after running some crap games.
yeah.
I've never seen you run a crap game though, Ian.
Well, I don't broadcast them on my channel. I delete that.
Put yourself out there.
I delete that. Yeah.
Oh my god.
But hey,
I have a
Chep,
bad game online. I wish I could get rid of it. Chip.
Wow. Okay,
What?
Chep.
Hey, I heard my name shouted really loudly. What's going on?
That's
Barker is
probably-
excited to see you.
I don't know why. I don't
Just
know
Barker,
why.
though. Just Barker. The rest of us are.
I'm always excited to see you.
So Anthony, you said you're just about to get into GMing, yeah?
Yeah.
What game?
Well, I've done a bit of GMing for Castle Ravenloft.
Whoa.
Okay.
That was a bit of a Christmas present, but a group of friends have just sort of asked me to GM for D&D 5th edition, so I said I would for them.
Oh, right. I forgot that I did that as well.
You ran a 5th edition session?
Yeah.
Cool.
Someone wanted at one point, and I ran for him.
Let me ask you then, Flo, What rules did you use? Did you use the starter set? Did you use the basic set, or did you just like get hold of a player's handbook and go full on? Or
Well, I had 3 books, and then I went nuts. Essentially, that's my philosophy, and especially when I run one shots. It's like, hey, I've got a rule book. What does fit my one shot? And I pick and choose what I want, and then I go nuts.
ah, yeah, yeah. You're also, if I recall from previous chats I've had with you, you're a bit of a speed reader, right?
Yeah, I am.
Yeah, I wish I could do that. I
Yeah.
am the opposite of a speed reader. I'm kind of like a snail reader.
Oh,
In
me
fact,
too.
I oftentimes, like when I'm reading a section or a paragraph, I sometimes have to read it like 3 times just to get it through my thick skull.
Yes.
Because
Or
either
sometimes
it's just
you'll
not
read.
computing, or I'm not paying attention really. Like I have a tendency to read something, but I'm not really focusing. Or other times, like I'm just falling asleep. But
Oh,
You'll
well,
read halfway through a paragraph and be like, "Oh my God, I have no idea what I just read. Got to reread that."
yeah,
And by the 4th time, it's like, you know what? Maybe I should see a doctor.
in my
yeah,
case, it's more like my brain makes a summary for some reason of everything that I've read so far, and stuff just gets fastly processed. But that doesn't mean it stays in my head for a very long time. Unless I put it into practice, nothing stays in there. It's kind
I
of
wish
like
I had
that.
this skill.
Kind of like that saying, practice makes perfect, and if I don't put it into practice, it just goes away.
Yeah.
And what about you, Anthony? How are you approaching running 5th edition? Are you using basic set or player's handbook or?
Player's handbook. Uh, I've tried to teach myself a lot of it, but I have sort of been asking around. There's still a bit of stuff that confuses me that hasn't been sort of addressed in the handbook. Well, everything is in the handbook, but we've still got some nib questions, I guess.
I've read the player's handbook probably cover to cover twice now, and I've run dozens and dozens of sessions, and there's parts of it that still confuse me too. So you kind of sometimes you just have to wing it, or you have to just kind of decide for yourself, and don't be afraid to like just kind of go out there and make your own rule if you need to.
Yeah.
Yeah, in my case, I wing it all the time, which is not a very good advice for anyone, but whatever.
No, that's very good advice, actually. I think that's the best advice. I feel like, 5th edition DM's Guide said it. A lot of other core rule books say it, where it's like, hey, you see all these rules? You don't really need them. You can just bullshit it if you want. And I feel like that's the best way to go. I think one of the best, most fun games I ever ran was Epi. I think you were around. The Sheep was around.
I was
Okay.
Were you too plastered to remember? Dude,
No, I remember you were in it, but I can't
was the
remember what instance you
Yakuza.
played.
I was
The what?
the freaking former Yakuza, the Arumi of the Phalanx, the man taught by Prince to remix all pop music and to degent.
Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah. I might have
Yes,
been.
I played the Electric Triangle.
Wow.
Yeah, it was just spur of the moment about a group of musicians and a spaceship that looked like a band touring bus that crashed into Castle Grayskull and fought some things. In the end, there were no rules. I just asked them to roll dice and tell me how they rolled. And honestly, it was just...
in this game.
I don't... You know what? I wish Locrius was in this game. I didn't even know who Locrius was at this time. It was...
I think
Chepe-
you need to revisit this, and we bring Locrius in either as a
Return
band
to-
member or maybe as a villain.
Return to Planet Iron Maiden, that's what I'll call it.
Awesome.
Although my character was dead because I committed seppuku at the end of it. After I received a divine vision from Prince, my former mentor, as he
The artist formerly
the
known
Jedi,
as...
Yeah, the artist formerly existent as Prince, and as his astral projection loomed over the cosmos, and I did the worst impersonation of Prince of my life.
I can't say too many people out there have played like suicidal electric triangle players.
No. But I promise you, like anything that you just pull out of your brain and just throw at the players and let them do with what they will be better than saying, hold on for the next 10 minutes, guys, let's look through the rule book. I swear, every single time.
That's true.
See, really, really competent games know this happens, and they give you what I call bullshitting material, right?
Yeah.
And 5th edition does that for you. They give you the tools to bullshit. It's called advantage and disadvantage. If you have no idea what's going to happen, just say, okay, you're at disadvantage, or okay, you're at advantage. Simplest shit ever. Or just add proficiency, right? They were mindful. They knew what happened. Smart design. They gave you the tools to bullshit. They are encouraging you. They're giving you a license to create to bullshit as much as you can. They're literally giving you the horns of the bull, and the shit is flying out of its ass right now, propelling you to perpetual GM hood. You're flying on a shitting bull.
And that's not a metaphor. That really
That is not a metaphor.
Yeah.
Right? So grab it by the horns, all right? Which is a metaphor.
Yeah, that's
Take that shit and bull with it.
That's exactly how I ran that one shot. I bullshitted my way all the way through.
Advantage, disadvantage. Covers a multitude of sin.
Yeah, because what you can do anyway is once you get through your session with all of your bullshit and everybody's had a good time and everybody's chilled out afterwards, you can always go back and revisit and read the rules later and figure out what maybe the rules say you should have done, etc. Or if there is something absolutely you just can't wrap your head around and you want to take a break to read the rules, just actually declare a break, just call a break in a session, say, okay guys, 10 minutes, everybody use the bathroom, make a drink, make some coffee, order pizza, and then you can kick back and read the book for a few minutes, but I wouldn't advise doing that too often in a session, of course.
Yeah, well, in some sessions, it depends on the game system, really, because it happens on the more rule-intense systems that you kind of need to house rule for one encounter, or just read the rules outright for something. But hey, in my experience, it's like as long as you're having fun, it's all good. It's all good. Because that's why we're here, to have fun. Some people forget about it.
Oh, a lot of people forget about it. I've seen a lot of conversations on communities about really awful things in games, like putting children in danger in your game, and pedophilia in games. But you know what? Nothing creates more of a controversy than someone saying, I think you should be able to have fun in your game. That's what starts the fights.
Wow.
We're
Okay,
asking
Chelsea.
if people are fans of random character creation. Apparently, that has a lot of sore thumbs to it.
Yeah, that's true. Random characters. Who are you, you communist?
On Facebook or the internet in general, but especially Facebook role-playing groups lately, it seems like you just ask any question or bring up any topic and people find something to fight about.
That's true. That's true. Oh, God.
How are you, Chelsea? Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. I just finished shoving food in my face hole.
Oh, good.
Glad you could join us.
Yep.
What's going on?
With me or with everybody?
With you.
With you. You just walked in.
Well, let's see. All of maybe 2 days ago, I picked up this, and this, and this.
Oh,
okay,
nice.
they got too heavy at that point.
The Holy Trinity.
I just got the Elemental. What's it called? It's the new D&D book. The
Elemental Evil Players, something or other.
Play or something. Yeah, that book. It's like an adventure from first level to 15th level, and I love it. I love everything I'm seeing in it.
Is that the one with Tiamat?
What?
I don't know.
The Rainbow Dragon.
I don't think so.
I don't think so either.
I don't know why.
I don't know what kind of books you're reading, man, but
There was a book with a Hydra that had multiple colored dragon heads. So
Okay.
I don't know. Maybe I'm
Yeah, the
looking at
dragon
the
was
wrong.
his name Puff, by any chance.
That's
Yeah.
that sounds like a
No.
gangster's name, like a secret name, like a tag.
Puff.
Rainbow Dragon.
Okay. I feel like I've never heard of a gangster named Puff.
No, hey man, that's really. Yeah,
Why
you
not?
should come to New Mexico. Look at, I'm telling you, probably has something to do with.
I'm
smoking.
actually from Arizona originally.
Oh, cool.
Cool, but I've never been to New Mexico.
It's
So-
hot in
So,
Arizona.
Chelsea, are you new to role-playing games, or are you new to running games, or?
I am new to everything, actually. It was but maybe a month and a half ago, one of my online gamer buddies was like, hey, this is your last undiscovered niche. Why don't you come try it out? And a month later, I have lots of things memorized.
Yeah, I think I remember your first post. You posted in looking for somebody to run a Pathfinder game. Is that right?
Yeah, I actually got one. It ended up fizzling out. It was supposed to end up to be a campaign, but it fizzled out due to the guy that was running it was 16 and cannot control getting grounded.
Right. Okay.
But from there, I'm playing in Kevin. I can't remember his last name. Kevin's game, and he's running a Pathfinder game. And that's next Saturday on the 9th, yeah. And then I picked up the books, and I decided instead of Pathfinder, I wanted to run in 5e just because I think it fits me personally a little bit better, because I'm a lot more narrative roleplay based and more focused on the idea of creating grand worlds and having the ability to kind of edit it as I please.
Mhm.
Fair enough. Hello, Tim.
Hello.
Tim, are you a new or aspiring game master as well, or?
No.
No, that's fair. No, you're not aspiring, or no? Have you been doing it for a while, or?
Dude, Tim is the master.
Tim is awesome.
Tim's
Right,
been here before the game.
No,
He
that's
inherited the
Yeah.
title Dread Pirate Roberts. I mean,
Dread Pirate
Come on.
Riley.
Riley.
yeah.
What did I
Yeah.
say? I said Roberts, didn't I? Dang it.
Yeah.
I need
Yeah, you
sleep.
kind of did.
Well, that's okay. It goes back to the white box D&D days, and
Awesome.
so I'm just hanging out and
That's cool.
just to talk games and have a good time and
Excellent.
say this is your future right here. So 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 don't let me interrupt and.
No, we're just talking, just kind of getting to know everybody's, I guess, level of experience or expertise with running games. And Chepe was talking about magical flying bulls.
Yes.
He was.
I was giving him the rant on the wonders of systems that give you the ability to BS.
Yes.
And I went very extensively with the metaphor of bulls and
It was
their
glorious.
people matter.
Not far enough, Chepe, depending on who you asked. I think you should have gone farther with the metaphor.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Next
The
time.
imagery was used.
Yes. Yeah, I know. I just couldn't feel it. I could see it, but I couldn't feel it.
Oh, it was warm. And you could feel it in your nostrils. I mean, it affected your breath. It was a bit moist in the back of your throat. It was a bit-
And that feeling is called woozy.
Yeah.
I feel like that feeling is called Chepe. I'm feeling a little Chepe, guys. About you? I feel like I need to sleep this off.
He was saying he was having trouble with 5th edition. I was like, if you are worried about anything about a situation, just use advantage, disadvantage. They give you that tool right there to use.
Yeah,
Just do it.
it's the best.
It's so easy.
I feel like they were a little upset that the last thing Gary Gygax saw before he died was 4th edition, so they were like, you know what? Let's fix this and make 5th edition.
No comment.
So Anthony, you haven't run your first game yet, is that right? Or have you?
No, the Beast of Mar is going to be my first one.
Right?
Which one?
The Beast of Mar.
Yeah, I'm in that.
Yep, Ian's in it.
Cool.
What about you, Anthony? When's your first game?
I'm starting it in a month. About a month.
Cool. Very
Bit
good.
nervous, but
Ah,
that'll be fine.
Listen to lots of Taylor Swift. Shake it off.
Not much of a Taylor Swift guy.
or don't, you know. Some people might approach it the other way.
Yeah.
Hey, everybody might hate it, but if you listen to it enough by accident, just by being around people who listen to it, every once in a while you're gonna catch yourself going, "Shake it off."
That's
Too
the
much
power.
energy.
I think that's what sells it.
Mm-hmm.
That is the power of pop music, isn't it? It's
Catchy.
Mm-hmm.
power granted by the
Uptown
dark
funk you up. Uptown funk you
Oh,
up.
that one, yeah, that's been on the radio.
Uptown. Yep, I can't stop. Won't leave me.
And you won't stop?
Sure, sure.
So Chelsea, your game is in what, just under 2 weeks, is it? Or
Yeah, something like that. About 2 weeks pretty much. If you would have counted, 2 weeks. Let's go with that.
trying to remember what day it is.
16th.
Thursday, isn't it?
Thursday's a Saturday.
That's a different game.
Yeah,
Oh,
Saturday.
it's on Saturday the 16th.
Yes.
Okay. Oh shit.
Uh-oh.
What time is it?
Are you, what time zone are you in?
He's GMT.
Oh, what time? I'm GMT. Well, GMT +1 because it's
I think it's 5 Eastern, but let me double check that for you real quick.
okay.
If so, then that would be 9 GMT, 10
I-
PM plus 1, if I'm not mistaken.
I might have an issue, but I'll see. Find out. I'll let you know.
Okay.
I think. You guys, you're 5 hours from EST.
We're 5 hours ahead of Eastern now, yeah, because we're on daylight savings time as well.
Gotcha.
So.
Yeah, that sucks. Like the time differential, those few weeks when we were doing daylight and you guys weren't, like, and then Australia wasn't at that time, it was just so effed up because
Yeah,
there's so many people on the sides of the world that was trying to course like a campaign fall apart because of it. Like,
Just got a private message from somebody that wants us to talk about something. Wants us to talk about what we think are the basics of running a game.
Holy shit, are we live?
Yeah.
I didn't realize it.
Yeah, we are.
Oh, cool. Hold on.
I hope you enjoyed my bowl metaphor.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well,
One
there we go.
1 second. Now I'm ready. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, that's good. There you go. So anyway, he wants to talk about the basics of running a game. So who wants to go first?
Well, can I?
Okay, we'll let one of the rookies go first. Go for it.
Yeah, and correct me if I'm wrong.
We will.
Okay.
Oh, we will.
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding. There is no.
No,
wrong,
what
man.
do you,
There's-
what it's actually kind of interesting because since you're only starting as a games master, what do you think are the basics of running a game?
Well, first things first. Have an idea of what you want to do. Is it a one-shot or a full-on campaign?
Mm-hmm.
Know at least what you're getting into in broad strokes. You can hash out the details later. Have fun, because everyone forgets that from time to time. Prepare to bullshit your way out of a lot of situations. And if you know, it's best to know before you start what is the tone of what you're doing, so that you know what your players want. Because if you're doing something and the players are expecting something else, but not in a good way, then they might just leave your table or broadcast. You know.
Right.
So it's best to know these things beforehand, to a certain degree.
Okay.
You know?
Yeah, those are definitely some good tips.
Yeah, you got to have a little bit of preparation at least. Totally. Well, you don't have to, but I that's my type of
What
style.
kind of
Chepe,
preparation?
right when I said that, Chepe was like, "What, Barker? Preparation? What's that?" No, I am.
What kind
I'm
of
on
preparation?
board. What's that?
What
In
kind of preparation would you advise, Barker?
Would I? I would prepare for your weaknesses. I would really figure out like where you suck. Like that's the best thing to do is figure out I suck at naming NPCs. And so I would prepare by looking at a bunch of names for NPCs or memorizing names or honestly even printing out a list just to post on my wall while I'm running the game for me to pick one out. And I would play I would have faith in my good qualities as a DM. If I am good at coming up with random encounters, I wouldn't plan for that because I'm good at that. Like I can do that by myself. I don't need to waste time preparing for that. So I would just do it. But whatever you suck at, embrace the suck. Okay, step one. And step two is to prepare for the suck to not suck.
yeah,
Suck.
in my case, that would be actual sheets for the random NPCs or the stats that I want to give them, because it's like I can come up with a name for a random NPC, no problem. I can give them the best backstory you've ever heard if I really feel like it. But actually giving them stats, then I'm like, okay, I really need to prepare at least a day or two beforehand, or sometimes even months when creating a character, because it's like, oh god, why? That's why for campaigns I have this time just thinking of the best backstory that I could give my PC and the best stats that I could think of at that time and what would work and what wouldn't and so on and so forth. That's why I'm like overthinking things, and that's my weakness, especially when it comes to creating characters. And I need to differentiate. Okay, these are NPCs. This is not my PC that I'm using for a campaign, and it's kind of hard for me to differentiate. That's why post-its help, and reading a lot of books helps, especially of different genres, because then you and talking to a lot of people, because everyone has a different personality, and if you at least try to mimic a few features of that personality in your characters, you might have somewhat of a more fleshed up mob, not just some random numbers on the table.
Sure.
But
Yeah, I
then
think
again, yeah. But then
one of the
again,
keys, I think. Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
okay, sorry. Then again, I get into my best strengths and get away from my weakness. Because then it's like, hey, I know what his backstory is, but I can't come up with a suitable uh, stats for that dude. Or I get into the opposite position where I have the perfect stats, but I don't have a good backstory for him, and then everything goes vice versa, because then the backstory doesn't mesh with the stats. That would be my second weakness. Okay, your turn.
Yeah, I think like if your weakness is to do with the stats stuff like that, it's just handy to have a bunch of templates maybe handy or something. Like they have in the D&D materials, they have templates for basic NPC type roles. Like thugs, bandits, thieves, wizards and things of that sort. Just very basic, low level kind of stuff. For people to come across, and you can always kind of take those templates and then you can ramp them up if you want to make them tougher, or you can change them around, customize them however you like, but at least you have a basic layout that you can work from.
Yeah, that's why. That's why. Sorry to interrupt. That's why I think things like Monster Manual help a lot. Things like sheets that come at every core book that you can find help a lot. Or have something like, if you have like a coalition or tradition or tribe book or stuff like that, and you scroll down to the end of it and see that, oh wait, there are templates of different partisans of said group, that gives me ideas and helps me.
Right,
You know.
absolutely. I think a lot of things with, and the reason I think people are hesitant to maybe start running games, it has to do with just confidence, being comfortable with putting yourself out there and running the game for a group of friends. And a couple of things, two major things that really help you to build that confidence will be experience, which obviously you're not going to get until you start to actually do it, and basic knowledge. So to have a basic knowledge, I think it's good to understand just the important aspects of the game, rules perhaps, that you're going to need to use to run your game, which is why I like things like QSRs, Quick Start Rules, for the D&D starter set, which is actually probably, strangely enough, my favorite of the 5th edition products so far. It comes with this handy little starter set rulebook, which has basically all the rules you need to run a beginning game, and it is only 32 pages long. So it has basic rules on combat, magic, characters up to only the 5th level, but I mean, if you're just getting started, if you start off first level up to 5th level, is going to do you just fine anyway. And it's got some basic monsters, spells, and everything else in the back too. So and equipment and stuff too. So it's just everything you need to really get started, get a couple of sessions under your belt, and then you start to build your confidence from doing that.
Although in my case it's like depending on what game I'm running, it helps me just to have a sheet of paper in front of me with all of the rules that I'm going to use or I'm going to need to use in that particular session, because I know what I'm going to ask of my players. Kind of like a cheat sheet.
Yeah.
Cheat sheets help you a lot.
Yep. Anybody else have anything to throw in there, like basics, just for starting GMs to run a game?
And for those who just walked in, we're taking some questions from, I don't know, audience questions.
Yeah, just somebody that was watching sent me that message.
About gaming.
This is being recorded. Holy crap!
Yeah.
Oh, give me a break, Sean. Oh my gosh, I've never
he's
done
taking
this
a shower, Sean.
I need to make my nails, dude. I need to get that manicure going.
Yeah.
Need to get my teeth whitened. Like Botox.
Yeah, we're talking about basic.
What helps is generators. I was just talking about with Robert. If you don't have ideas, go to the different generators, like Myth Weavers or something, just for basic ideas. If you're making a setting, or if you need.
Shiny. Yeah.
I think actually for a starter GM, it's probably better not to try to make your own setting. You probably want to keep it kind of simple to start with.
Yeah.
Maybe go with just a generic layout. Like I was talking about the D&D 5th edition starter set. It's just got like a small little area of the Forgotten Realms. There's like one village or town, I guess you could call it, and there's talk about another nearby city which isn't fleshed out. But really, there's no need playing the game to ever go to that city. At least not in your first few sessions. But
just to jump in there really quick, I would disagree just because it's how my brain works. Is like if I'm DMing, like I have a very difficult time DMing in someone else's setting because I feel like I have to learn about the setting before I run it. So if you are that kind of person where you want to make your own place and then put your players' characters into that place, kind of a mix of both. What Ian is suggesting is, start with someone else's simple stuff before you drown yourself in your own setting. In a way, that's true. But if you just start tiny, like you start with a small town or not even a town, a hamlet, and the very just vague surrounding area, and just kick it off with that, that's an amazing way to grow, to build your world from the bottom up or inside out. And that's how all of my worlds have been made because, for me it's harder to start with someone else's setting than it is to make my own. But on that note, I actually have to leave. I'm making some music today, and I'm out of here, guys. But thank you very much for hosting this hangout, and I hope to do it again sometime. And I'll talk to all of you later.
Yeah, thanks for dropping by, Barker.
Later,
Yeah.
Barker.
Later.
Bye, Barker.
He taught us how to be a better game master.
Michael Barker, ladies and gentlemen, from the YouTube channel Be a Better Game Master, indeed.
Yeah.
So let's see, who else joined that hasn't been introduced since we started? First was Enrique. Is he still there? Yeah, there's Enrique.
Yes, I'm still here.
How are you, Enrique?
I'm fine. How are you guys doing?
Good. How do you feel? What's your level of experience with game mastering?
Very low. I game master like 6 sessions so far. Now I needed a time off because it's a little bit intensive, to be honest, so I want to learn a little bit more about playing games. On the matter of having your own setting, I think there are a few systems that help you creating a setting. I think Fate does that, and I heard that Dungeon World have something similar.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if anybody played that
Yeah,
before.
I haven't played Dungeon World, but I can say there's an entire section in the Fate book about creating your setting with your players, where it's a really kind of a everybody co-writes the setting. So you sit down with all your players and whoever's your game master, and you all kind of create the setting together and decide what kind of aspects the game is going to have and what kind of characters are going to be in it, what kind of problems you're going to come across, and things of that sort. So yeah, that's handy. There is a bit more reading involved in that, but it could be more comfortable for new players if they're all kind of doing it together. There's a bit of a support group then. It's not just one person kind of making it up themselves. Who else joined then? So I'm not sure who came in which order. So Alex, how are you?
Doing lovely.
Would you call yourself an experienced game master, or?
I would perhaps say so. Been at least since I was like 13, so about 15. About 14 years.
Cool. And Sean joined as well. Sean, you've run quite a few games, I know, haven't you?
I have played and run games since I was a kid, and there was a big break. Like I was like, I think, well, like 80, 89, 88 was one of my first game of the Dark Eye. And then we played Dark Eye for quite some time, and then it was a big break. And then high school, I played again, and then college. So I played quite a lot, especially over the computer. So so now I would say since 2011, pretty much continuously, and since 2004 in college, I would play quite regularly. But I think one thing that I would like, just one knowledge, is that don't worry about breaking the rules, and just learn as you go.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid of making mistakes, because that would hinder me often having a good session.
That's a great point too, and you don't feel like you have to know everything to start either, because you can read the book 100 times and still miss something. So, yeah.
Yeah, I agree. What I'm doing, getting started and everything, is I went out and picked up one of these, and it's color-coded, if you can see that. So there's
Yes.
green and orange and pink and stuff like that, and each color represents something in my head, kind of a memory tool, like this color means this, so like my pinks are my city, my city cards. So if I need to know something about a certain city, or what gods might be prevalent there, or who's the leaders, what kind of place is this, is it overpopulated, what does it smell like? Just like little notes like that are on my pink cards, and green for monsters, yellow for NPCs, so on and so forth. So that's a tool I'm using personally, that if I like get myself brain stumped in the middle of talking, I just be like, oh, yeah, okay, good to go.
Yeah, and that's why I said cheat sheets are very important, especially to help you get through the whole rules that you want to get into for your particular session. So it helps. Although in my case, I usually take an existing setting and just make it a bit my own for that particular adventure. You know, just give it
Mhm.
my flavor of it.
Well, the two games that you discussed running are both games with very heavily established worlds. So, because what Flo was saying is he runs Shadowrun and World of Darkness. So those both do have really pretty heavily fleshed out settings of their own. But of course, there's nothing that says you can't
Yeah,
write your own chapters within those.
I usually give
Yeah,
them my
I
own
just
flavor.
for me personally, like I come from a really weird background, so like I'm really new to DMing, like as a specific, definition. But I've been writing, and when I was in high school, I actually went to a performing arts academy. And my main two courses were art and drama, and I was signed out of all my general education classes. So I didn't take math, science, English, or anything like that. When I was growing up, I took art and acting and things of that nature. So that helps me a little bit. But when it came to like thinking about using somebody else's world, I don't know. That felt really stifling to me, so I had to make my own.
Huh? Fate's your friend. Literally,
Juice joined the conversation there. How are you, Juice?
I'm doing pretty good. Sounds like you guys are, covering all the basics and, doing some good stuff here. So I want to say, Chelsea, by the way, it's awesome that you're kind of picking up the ball and running with it. Getting some good dialogue going in the community. I know Chepe, loves this kind of stuff too. He always was trying to do this, and he always did a good job with it as well. So I just wanted to give you props for that.
I'm just a loudmouth. I don't need props for that.
But I do agree with what Sean said. Sean had said, don't worry about the rules too much. I completely agree with that. If, a rules question comes up and nobody at your table knows it, rule in the favor of fun and move on. That's one of the biggest things, and that's really the best thing I can come up with, right off the top of my head right now.
I have a question since we have a bunch of DMs here, actually. Me going through my own process, I've come up with a list of questions in my head, and the ones that I seem to struggle with the most are encounters. And I know we've already mentioned the random generation encounters, but are there other methods that you guys use besides random generation for encounters?
Yeah. I don't really use random that much. What I'll do for random is I might roll for a random wilderness encounter, but I do that in my prep time. So for instance, if I know my players are surrounded by forests, I'll roll what on a chart for forests, or I'll make my own chart for forests in the area. And so that way I still prep the random encounter. And then in game, if it comes up to a lull or they're traveling for a while or whatever, that's when I will roll to see if that encounter happens. So that's how I do random encounters. When it comes to regular encounters, I just kind of throw out there what I think would make sense for the story or whatever they're following progression-wise.
I would say if you're doing encounters and you have preparation, just like exactly what Lee said, I totally agree. Look through the monster manual, whatever game you're playing, or make your own monster for what you want to do. But it's not bad to have a couple of monsters just in case. And it's. I mean, I personally don't mind using a random generator for a monster, but nowadays I usually prep the monster because I don't know. I usually like to have at most one fight, especially in certain systems. The fight can be longer, so I rather just keep it to one fight and make the fight really as good as I can. But yeah, that's a difficult question with random encounters. Definitely random tables. What I like to do is like. I basically, sorry, I cannot add anything new. Lee said it best. I'm just rambling.
In my case, I prep everything before time, especially since this is my weakness. So there is nothing random in my case. Everything has been thought out beforehand. And just
I'm kind of the same.
The dice is the randomness. The encounter is not.
I always prepare my encounters in advance as well. And it might be preparing just simply as much as picking a few creatures out of a book or creating creatures of my own that I just want to have appear in a game session. But I don't do random tables. I don't roll for random encounters usually, unless like we're just doing maybe some kind of a like a scripted written dungeon crawl or adventure, something like that. I might do it then, but like in my own sessions that I write myself, nah, and I don't really do randoms. And also another thing I'd like to say about encounters, I'm not very good at encounter building, I suppose, in the sense that I don't use any formula for it. I know like the last few editions of D&D have come up with like challenge ratings and all these things that are supposed to allow you to like mathematically build an encounter that reaches a challenge level that you want for your players. It's never worked for me. I don't know why. Maybe because I don't always play by the rules, or I don't always use all the same. I don't use monsters exactly as they're written, I guess. So I've never bothered too much with challenge ratings. I just pick an encounter that I think would be cool and go with that.
Well, if you're picking random encounters, Ian, specifically, how are you gauging how hard this is? Like, is it going to kill your players? Like, how are you gauging trying not to kill your players?
I would never worry about if it's going to kill my players or not. Like, that is the last thing I think about. I come from Palladium books, and Sean knows this with Rips. There's no way to measure if something is, like, balanced, okay? Because it's not in Palladium. And so I come from a system, where it's like, whatever you put out there, you kind of have to expect your players to either be smart, and that could mean a lot of things. It could mean coming up with a plan that would take it down, or to run, there's so many different ways to handle an encounter. And so I carry that over to other games too. If my players are first level and they decide to go into the mountains where they've heard rumors of dragons or something, well, there's probably going to be a dragon there, and it's probably going to be, using D&D as the example, a CR 20 or something. And if they're dumb enough to attack it, then they're dumb enough to die, and I'm just going to go with it. Yeah, I would never try and really balance it.
If you want to make your world feel alive, then you have to have certain encounters that could come up that the players can't always win. You couldn't just walk out into the wilderness and kill every monster that you come across. There's going to be some things that are just bigger and badder than you, and you have to either talk your way out of it, depending on what you're dealing with, or avoid it, or run away, or sometimes characters got to die. It just happens.
Yep.
People make.
And it's possible to talk it out with a dragon. Like, dragons are intelligent creatures. They'll let you talk it out with them. So I completely agree with that. Definitely.
Most likely, if you're stupid, you're going to get killed. If you're smart about it, you won't. That's the general rule of thumb that I'm going with. Worked for me so far.
What?
See,
what I try and do
just a side note, people are asking how to view it in the Facebook post. How to view this, sorry.
Yeah.
I posted a link.
One-shots are different, by the way. If you're planning a one-shot that's got a set story, and your players are going to be third level, and your idea is that they're going to do such and such, you probably will want to tone it down and not give them a CR20 dragon if they're third level. But you know what I'm saying, I think.
Yeah.
In a campaign, I handle it a little more open and realistic. In a one-shot, it's a little bit more railroaded. And
Okay, cool. If you guys don't mind, I'll throw one more question out there. What do you guys do to control your timing for one-shot sessions?
Timing as in... What do you mean timing? Like when...
Timing as far as... Go ahead.
Oh, as in like when the game is going to happen?
That depends on the players.
Like if you say you have a one shot and you want it to run anywhere from about 2 to 4 hours, so you've given yourself a good range.
Okay.
And you want the story to progress, but you don't want to halt them. And say you're halfway through the story and it's moved a lot faster than you expected. What do you guys do to kind of give the players a little bit more, story or so it doesn't end so short?
I think don't worry about if the game ends short, because it's, for me, how I see it. I had sessions now. I use Rules Light system, and it lasted like just under an hour, and it was a great session. And I think it's not about how long or how short the session is, because I had sessions that were long and boring, and I had sessions that were short and great, and I had the opposite. It's more about, was the session fun? Like, if you cannot. I try to predict players, and I never can, so I just gave up. I just say, I'm not in complete control of the story. They have agency in the story, so they actually also, in a sense, tell the story, but with their actions. If they don't go into the cave, they go into the casino, and they try to swindle the casino guy, then I have to, and I have to chop. Okay, casino guy, stats, everything, blah. Let's find the stats for gambling. Let's do this.
You
Okay,
completely stat them out, Sean?
No, of course not. I just give the stats that are needed, or I have something prepared. I'm just in my head, Like usually I give them at least hit points or something, depending on the system.
Right. Like AC hit points and attack modifier.
Exactly. Those three always for rifts or something, hit points, attack modifier, and like dodge or something, at least, and what kind of damage they do if it's an enemy for fighting.
Good deal.
Well, in my case, the simplest answer, I don't. Sessions run as long as they want to. If it becomes boring and everyone is like, let's just leave it at there, then everyone just goes. No need to drag on, because we're all adults to a certain degree. We have certain degrees of maturity to actually know how much we can stat at the table, or how much we can actually broadcast. We all know our timetables, So it's up to us.
I have a lot of difficulty managing that myself, because I oftentimes try to keep a one-shot right around the 3-hour mark. It could be anywhere from 2.5 to 4 hours, I suppose. But sometimes you just can't tell, and I almost always find, especially if I have another game going on later that night or something anyway where I have to try to keep within that time schedule, I oftentimes have to cut things out of games that I have prepared. In a way, even if I only prepare maybe 3 encounters for a one-shot, sometimes lucky to get through 2 in a 3-hour space of time, depending on the players and depending on what else goes on in between encounters and everything. So you really, it's something you just can't really plan for. You just have to kind of go with the flow.
Okay, cool.
Next question.
Can I just ask another question about saving throws?
Yeah.
And how you would gauge a situation, like how you would sort of determine. I know you sort of use rough numbers, but say what distinguishes like a DC 17 to a DC 16, or is it just a?
What I always do now is that they have always recommended this should be the saving throw difficulty for this and this. So I read it through once or twice, and then I just wing it from there, mostly.
All right.
So.
Or use cheat sheets.
Or that.
That's why I keep on repeating this, because it's so important, especially as you're learning the system or trying to figure out what you want to do, or just have stuff prepared in advance. Have cheat sheets in front of you. That way you can know, okay, what do you need to roll, what's the difficulty, and gauge your expectations from your players with a cheat sheet in front of you. Because it's not shameful, because you know what your strengths and weaknesses are when you're running, and if you don't remember it, have it written down. Simple as that.
There's nothing. Oh, cheat sheets are wonderful. I don't think anybody should ever be ashamed to have tools, any kind of tool that they can use to be better at what they're doing. And that goes for dungeon mastering, art, reading, doesn't matter, studying. If you have a cheat sheet method, I don't think there's anything to be shameful of there.
Cool.
What do you think? That answered it.
Any other questions?
Let's go with topics. Let's go. What is you guys' favorite like plot, scenes, feeling, moods, backgrounds when you guys are thinking about the perfect, campaign or one shot? Like, what is your go-to source for inspiration when you're writing?
I think that's a question for Chepe.
Awesome.
Oh, and not for Chepe?
No, I'm joking because Chepe has so many inspirations.
Oh.
I have blogs for my settings, right? And they each have a list of inspirations, and there's at least 15 things in each of those lists.
And you have, what is it, 30-some settings or something last time I talked to you?
37 settings, although it's less than that because I'm basically cannibalizing a lot of them into single settings.
Yeah. Well, can I answer this one as well?
Yeah, go for it.
In my case, it's like, okay, I want to have a base idea of what I want to do, General, if it's like a dreamscape thing or a post-apocalyptic thing, I go with either video games, movies, or TV series that I'm watching at that time, and then just cannibalizing all of the elements that I'm of all of those settings to make it work for my structured idea that I want to do, to get the best story that I want to do. Because if you're telling a story, because that's the most important thing for me, usually, I want to tell a story to my players. And I look at the best elements that I could find so that I could tell that certain story the best way I can at that certain time. And I take inspiration from anywhere that I could find and make it awesome.
Just want to put it out there real quick because people have been talking about how this Hangout was full. We do have room for one more person to join right now.
And I'll be leaving in a minute. So
Robert Ogre has launched a second Hangout as well if anybody wants to go join and chat over there. I'm trying to copy and save it, but my phone's not cooperating at the moment. So I could share it. It is posted in Chelsea's original topic anyway, the Good Morning OSG topic. But
what about the rest of you guys? Same kind of general question. When you guys are starting to sit down and brainstorm and stuff like that, where are you guys pulling your inspiration from? What's your favorite, theme and
Monster
plot
Manual.
line? There you go.
I pull from the Monster Manual. If it's a one-shot, usually I just flip through the Monster Manual. I'm like, oh, I think this would be cool to use because I haven't used it before. Another thing I have done before is for like one-shots at like a gaming store, I've tried out encounters that I knew were coming up in my campaign in order to like play test them kind of and see if it would work out real well and how it would unfold. So yeah, that's what I do.
I really just kind of go with, it depends on what game I want to run. And, like if I want to run a D&D game, then, yeah, I mean, it just depends on what's going around in my brain at that time. I'm not quite as diverse as Chepe, I suppose, in my inspirations, but I do have a wide range of films and books and movies, films and movies, but, different things that have inspired me with games that I want to run. So I just kind of, once I have the system I'm going to run, then I just kind of pick maybe a few story ideas or something that are bouncing around in my brain anyway, and then I try to put that down into maybe a one-shot or occasionally a campaign.
I usually also go with movies, comic books, I don't know, music, power metal, I don't know, video games. Video games is great.
Power metal.
well, power metal, there's a lot of power metal that's very fantasy themed, so to get into the mood. And usually it will never be this epic the game because it's going to be, the meme where it's like every role-playing game starts like the Fellowship of the Ring, and they end as the knights from Monty Python Holy Grail. For me, they start as Monty Python's Holy Grail, and they end as some, I don't know as what they end. And even goofier, and not every group, but there was at least one group that was that way. So I present some kind of setting, and then it just kind of develops. But yeah, mostly movies and stuff like that, and ideas, and yeah.
So we're
That's
still
crazy
talking
that you
about
mentioned.
settings?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, we're still talking about settings, but real quick before you say that, I just want to say it's kind of crazy that you mentioned power metal because in Robert Ogre, is that how you say his name? Robert Ogre?
Oh,
Robert
yeah.
Ogre.
In his map making group, we were talking about brainstorming for maps, and one of the first things I said was listen to heavy metal music. But go on. The next
Just to clarify, Nelson, we're talking about sources of inspiration, not settings, because I know if we get Nelson on settings.
No. Source of inspiration for creating a setting, right?
Yeah.
All right. I have two things. It's the biggest, most major way of coming up with a setting is nothing is sacred. Nothing. You look at something, even if it doesn't fit in your setting, just reskin it to work. Right? That's one. And then two is also to allow your players to create the setting. You know, you come up with a basic idea, here you go, and they take it left, right, center, because players are usually going to do that anyway. You know, they're going to come up with their own things, their own interpretations, or want to do their own thing. Let it happen, and next game session, you go, well, they did this, so how would that affect my world? And then you adjust and come back, and your setting is organic. And when you're coming up with ideas, nothing is sacred.
That's actually not a bad
Nelson-
not a bad bit of advice.
Nelson says it really well because I don't do it that often, but sometimes it just works out so well because I had one player, he made it barbarian, and he said one of his things is he hates boglins, and I'm asking, what the hell is boglins? And he said, well, in the 90s there was this toys, don't you remember? And there are these weird toys with these little arms, they look like kind of creatures and stuff. And I'm like, well, they're kind of weak, but he just kind of hates them, and he wants to kill the king of the boglins. Yes. There's boglins,
Awesome.
and they're little. They're not even like CR1. They're like CR1/2. But he wants to kill them, and that's not a thing. We got
So that just
boglins.
added something to your world, yeah.
Oh yeah.
Because
Oh yeah.
his backstory. Chepe actually, sorry Chepe, I didn't see you posted this in the chat, and I had the chat closed most of the time because it makes my video lag for some reason.
Yeah.
But you asked a question there. What's the one thing you would say that breaks the ice and lets you actually plunge into running a game? So, you know, Chelsea, you're actually running a game soon. You're going to run your first game. What would you say? What was it that you know, kind of inspired you to do that? To finally just run one?
To break into it, honestly, my brain explodes with ideas, and I think really weird compared to other people. So I don't know if I'm a good example for this. But like I said, I already write, and for me, it's just turning things that I write into a story that, you know, other people can play with and, you know, change as they go and, you know, warp to their own fantasies and stuff like that. So it's really just kind of opening my mind up and sharing it with other people. I don't know. It's like delve into the darkness of my brain.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. That sounds awesome.
Well, running like I like how Chelsea said she already writes, because I kind of write too. Not necessarily books, but more comics than anything. And when you're at a game table and you're playing a game, that's a cooperative story. It's like reading one of those choose your own adventure books with other people, but it could go an infinite amount of ways besides what was just written.
Yeah.
It's actually funny because one of the first RPGs I ever played is actually one of those choose your own adventure books, and the reason why I call it an RPG because it was the fighting fantasy books, where also part of it is you make a character, you have stats, very simple, not advanced, the fighting fantasy, and you could fight. So you had dice. So that was like the very first RPG I ever encountered.
And the whole experience is like a back and forth between the storyteller and the players, because that's essentially what you are, a storyteller. And most of the time you're trying to tell an awesome tale of epicness, and your players are there to ride on into the magic rainbow of awesomeness.
Well, there could be a lot of debate on that. That's a very controversial term, storyteller, because a lot of people hear the term storyteller and they automatically think of like a GM who's going to just railroad them into going down the path that they've laid out and, you know, running into the things exactly the way that they expect them to. Not saying that that's what you mean by it, but I'm just saying that that's kind of it's a debate I saw somewhere recently anywhere, where
Well,
you know, it's
when
kind of
I
the difference between a referee and a storyteller and a game master. You know.
Well, when that's why in my title I usually say all three. It's like DM, GM, and ST, all into one. I am the avatar of hate. Th- that's kind of like, hey, don't like GM, go with DM. Don't like DM, go with ST. Doesn't matter. I'm your avatar of hate, and I'm here to provide you the best experience that I can give you.
Now,
You know?
I personally wouldn't say storyteller. Like your job is to be, your job, quote unquote, is to tell a story. But I think of a GM or a DM as another character class, but only one person can play that character class.
Yeah.
So when I'm running a game, I'm playing the class of the GM.
What did you want to say to that, Chepe? I saw you get animated for a moment there. You wanted to say something.
Although in my case,
Chepe adamant? What?
No, he started to chime in there, but.
Although in my case, I'm just your avatar of hate. If you want to use one of the three things, you'll use the three things. I don't care which one. I'm your avatar of hate. In this session, I'll be bringing down whatever you want. No.
What were you gonna say, Chepe? Nothing? No? Okay. No, I'm sorry. I thought you were gonna say something. Sorry. Yes.
Okay. Next question. Go.
Never mind.
I can't ask all the questions, guys.
Yeah, you can.
I was gonna ask not what inspires a person to game for the first time, to run a game, but rather as a GM, what is the thing that brings you from the point of prep to actually running it, to where you have an idea of what you're going to do?
Oh,
like at what point? Yeah.
For me, it's usually the hands of the clock because I usually do my prep right before I run a session. I'm a lazy dungeon master.
In my case, it's more like a whole campaign from the starting idea of what I want to do, and up till the whole, hey, get everyone to play with me, because that's usually a battle in and of itself, getting everyone's schedule, because most of the time people are from different parts of the world, and when I have the time, not everyone has the time, and then I keep on. I have to egg out a lot of people just to get them to play with me, and usually it just turns out to be like 1, 2 players. Hopefully next time I'll get 3. Hopefully. We'll see.
I suppose I gave my quick answer there, but that was kind of in relation to games that I'm already running, I guess. There are some ideas that I do have swimming around in my brain that I haven't posted yet, I haven't put up, I haven't run, and those specific games that I'm actually currently having trouble putting on the table instead of just in my brain. I suppose it's kind of an issue of getting the right people that really want to play in that kind of a game, and that I think will, satisfy my own needs as a game master in their kind of play styles, I suppose. I don't want it to sound pretentious or snobby, but there are some ideas, and Chepe knows all about this, I think. There are some ideas that are just kind of sacred to the game master. There's games that you want to run, but you really want to, you want this to be serious, or you want this one to be really dark or noir, or another one you might want to have really campy kind of slapstick fun. But you have to have the right kind of people playing in those games to make that work, So, I do cherry pick players for a lot of those kind of ideas. So I have one of which is coming up pretty soon at the end of May, and we'll see how it goes. It's kind of a dark fantasy kind of thing that I've been putting together, and I just kind of picked a few players, and I think it's going to go well. But like if I had just thrown it up as an event in the group and said, hey, who wants to play? More than likely I get a lot of people who join that I may not know, and when you sit down at the table, it could all go kind of tits up, as it were.
Yeah, and
well, now that I understand.
Yeah, that's why I said it's a whole campaign just to get everyone into one place. Go ahead.
Yeah, now that I actually understand Chepe's question, I'm going to say I don't think you can ever think you're ready enough because anything could happen. You just kind of have to nod your head and say, well, let's do it, and hope for the best. Because I think if you try to get wrapped up in like over preparing yourself, like for every possible outcome that could happen during a game, you're going to kill yourself and you're going to take the fun out of it.
And you're kind of setting yourself up for failure as well, in a
Well,
way.
I think it's just about learning the rules of what you want to run. All you really need is like the player class or the combat rules, with an overall understanding of the social rules. Because most people, most role players, people who actually role play, and then don't just say, "I want to bluff them. What do I need to roll?" They're gonna role play what they're saying, and you could just go with the flow of it. The only things that require the most arbitration is combat. Like a combat encounter. What kind of spell am I doing? Because people are going to want to, kill stuff. They don't want their characters to just die. Knowing, like, the way I read rule books is almost like the way I prep. I skip to the player creation and combat, and then fan out from there.
Yeah.
I see that you kind of elaborated on the question. See, again, I don't have the chat open most of the time, but and you actually said what you're actually looking for is at what point during prep do you say you're ready enough and you're ready to actually run the game? For that, man, I don't know. I suppose I'm never really ready enough.
Yeah.
But and for that reason, I don't over prep anyway because I just go with a few basic things. Like I said, I may pick out a few creatures and stuff that I may want to have encountered, which may or may not come up in any given session. And I might have a few key kind of non-player characters that I think would be fun that I really want to throw in there if I get the chance. I might have some basic overall kind of ideas or themes for the game. Like I might have an idea for there's going to be maybe this villain somewhere doing something, or there might be this organization that's going to be antagonistic, but I don't really prep to such an extent that I never have maybe more than a couple of those things anyway, and I don't prep too much because, again, like I said, if the players just decide to do something else entirely, then all that prep time is wasted, really.
The best prep is learning how to improv.
Yeah. And
Oh, yes.
That's why I am a firm believer of the cheat sheet method, because writing your guidelines on your cheat sheets the same way as Chelsea is doing, I'm thoroughly 100% behind that, and that's the best way to go.
What I do like to do, I do like to still prep, and but the last thing I did a huge prep on was the Dungeon of the Mad Dwarf, where I actually made a default dungeon without any generation, just very old school graph paper and everything else, books and stuff. So, and 3.5, it was 3.5, and the thing is that I didn't want to just have like a randomly generated dungeon. I wanted to have one where everything is thought through. And the players have they haven't gone to every room and stuff, but you got to accept, if you do prep, there is huge possibilities that certain things, or maybe even the main thing, is not going to be explored. And you got to just go with that. And improvising is definitely, I think, important. But if you're not as familiar with improvising, then just prep more, I think. Like there's a story that I know is like, there's the guy, he said, okay, today we're gonna be in a troll cave. That's the game. And you see in the north there's a troll cave, and it said, okay, the players say, but we go to the south, and he says there's the troll cave, but we go to the west, there's the troll cave, there's the east, there's the troll cave. That's a very bad way of doing that. He's basically forcing them to go to the troll cave. But in a way, what you do is, if you have certain little things prepped around the players where they can go. And as I said, like Ian said, if you have some monstrous preps and NPCs that you can always pull out, maybe a little dungeon if you have dungeons, or maybe a little encounter, or maybe some kind of person of interest, or maybe even a whole switch of location, then I think you're set. Obviously, you're never 100% set ever. Sometimes you're just going to sit down, and I have gone to the table unprepared very often, so.
Yeah, I agree. In my first game I'm running, like one of the first decisions they make can completely change the story. Like if two groups ran it and made two different decisions in the beginning of the game, they would have two completely different games. Like they wouldn't even seem like the same game. And like that, I think that's kind of hitting the nail on the head as you can prepare, stuff like that. Have yourself ready to, have plot twists and stuff like that. But kind of give yourself the room to loosen your reins back and just, if they go completely another direction, just say, well, okay, let's roll with it.
Yeah, roll with the punches. Or you could learn how to become an amazingly manipulative person. And,
well, I'm a girl. That's natural.
so, like I find I do this a lot of times. I love to screw with my players' characters by screwing with my players. Pointing them in directions and just, okay, this is what you kind of want to do, or you're curious about this. Let's put it in the game. And then it's like, I gotta see what that is, and they go where you want them to go anyway.
Nathan joined the chat. Hey, Nathan, how are you? And I think we lost. There was Chris as well. Disappeared there.
Yeah, she actually, I think, had a question in the YouTube comments, I think.
Yeah, I see that now because Nathan just asked me if I was following the YouTube comments, and I wasn't.
I just typed them into the inbox.
My computer was having issues, so I pulled it up on my phone as well. So just I'll stick to the ones that relate to the topic on hand, which is for GMing purposes. Mm-hmm. But somebody said here, talk about how you frame a one-shot. And I think a specific question was,
how do you place the one-shot?
How do you place the game to work as a one-shot? Who runs lots of one-shots? So you've run quite a few one-shots, haven't you, Nelson?
Yeah, I've done a few.
And so how do you prepare a game and get it ready to work as a one-shot?
Well, so far, it's more like, I don't know how many of you have watched the really old school kung fu movies, where those kung fu movies are basically like a one-shot. You have your hero, and something happens so that this guy's the hero, and this is the world they're in. Then the hero gets better, and then the hero faces the bad guy. That's kind of it, Like if you're building a one-shot and you want to frame it, you have your party of heroes or your party of adventurers. Something in the world happens to let them know the kind of world they're in. Something to test their mettle. Something to let them feel heroic. And then you've got the final encounter. Whether it's like a boss battle or a social encounter, you have your final encounter, which is supposed to be the most difficult.
Hey Ben, how are you?
I had like a working theorem, an algorithm sort of, and I only got to test it once, and it did work the once, but maybe some of you more experienced one-shot runners can either confirm or deny it. I came up with this theory that before a one-shot, you have to be able to fit your whole plot, not the whole plot, but you have to be able to fit the hook into one sentence. So, an example sentence would be, after being contacted by a nobleman, the party goes to defeat a giant, period. And then it could probably be extrapolated, so for a two-shot, like a session over 2 sessions, it would be 2. So then you'd have like the beginning, period, and then the next section, period. But I felt like if I could condense the one-shot into one sentence and just get the core idea, then it would be fine. It usually wraps itself into about 3 hours.
Cool. I know for mine, they're usually, obviously the nature of the beast, I think, at least the way I run them, one-shots usually tend to be very linear, in that there is a beginning, a middle, and an end, kind of, if not necessarily a complete ending, at least there's an end scene, if you want, like where there's going to be this final conflict or whatever it is. Maybe it's a big puzzle, whatever it is, the final conflict of the game. And I kind of frame my stuff that way. I try to go with like a beginning, something in the middle, and then something at the end. Like Nelson said about a beginning, you introduce your heroes and establish the world that they're in and the crisis that they're going to get involved in. In the middle is just kind of usually what I aim for is, something to kind of make them feel awesome, make them feel, enjoy their characters, kind of show off their character strengths, whatever it is. hopefully, if depending on how much you know about the people playing in your game and the characters they're playing, you can sometimes customize things. Or if you're really good at improv, you can throw things in there that will play to their strengths. And then there's like a final conflict, whatever it is, whether it's a final showdown or some kind of a problem that they have to solve. And so that's kind of my 3-point, 3 acts, I guess you could call it, formula that I go for making my one shots.
And I've heard several DMs say this, and it's totally true. For a one shot, you don't start with the scene where everybody's sitting in a tavern. You start with the scene where the tavern explodes. Like, you just start with a one shot.
Yeah, it's a definitely good idea. You want to start off in the action, because if you're, unless you want to run a 6-hour long one shot, which I know some people have, you don't want to have all that downtime of, okay, everybody's ordering drinks and now they're harassing the barmaid and now they're shouting abuse at the minstrels. You want to skip all that and get straight to the action. Agree 100%.
It's the best way to keep your one shot on track.
Anybody else have anything to throw in on that before we move on to another question?
The best advice I've heard, right? The best idea is scale it down. Isolate it for one shot. Isolate it to one battle. If you're doing like a whole army, not a war, a battle. Isolate it to one problem in one town. Isolate it to getting out of this one dungeon, or getting out of this one temple, or getting out of this one particular brawl or bar fight. Isolate it to a singular event. Keep it simple, stupid, as Ben puts it down. Scale it down. Scale it down to one event, one place, one problem. Keep it a very understandable goal, and have that goal be the very premise for the one shot. Kill the thing. Fetch the thing. Run away from the thing. Get out of the exploding tavern. If it's an intrigue, make it one particularly good discussion, one particular political matter that's happening. If it's a mystery, make it a very simple, isolated part of a case, not like a whole series of murders, but solving one murder that's very immediate. The key to a one-shot is making it immediate. Just scale it down to one event, one problem, one goal. Oh, there you go.
Now, the key to the one-shot is being an impatient DM. Because the less you want to run a game, the more you're likely to compact that game. All right? That's the truth of the matter, because I tried running one-shots, and I can run 8-hour games. So if I'm not paying attention to what's going on, that game becomes like the 6, 7, 8 hours, because I'm just rolling as long as everybody else could go. So, try to have that time window. Because everything else, like what Chepe was saying about, the one scene, is still cool. Like, I've run a one-shot where they were supposed to find out something. They found it out, and they just naturally went to, let's fight it! That wasn't the goal, but that's where they went. So you can't always, hold that.
And Alex actually just made another good point. Or be willing to not get to the end. Sometimes the diversion is an okay thing to happen. You just let the results of it, and then you just call it quits after the time limit. Like,
do an end scene like a cliffhanger.
Sorry, yeah.
I was gonna say like I've run a couple one shots where the end never came to be. They only got halfway through the planned one shot, and one way I just did it was that towards the end I let them narrate an encounter rather than play it out. It was more like, here, guys, one by one, take complete narrative agency to describe how you overcome this one obstacle. And then I did an exit scene where it's like, here was the boss. That was the guy you were supposed to fight. But, it's an exit scene now, letting you know that something is still there. For maybe we could play the one shot again later, but start from a different point and continue on.
One thing I did, I don't know if you guys made a PvP one-shot, but I did the Death Maze, and the entire point was that it's just going to be like an 80s style, like one-on-one fight to the death. And the thing was that I don't know how long it would take. I don't know how long it would take for them, but the funny thing is that it ended perfectly. It just happened to end perfectly because as Chepe said, there's only focus on one thing and don't try to put in so much stuff into it, so to speak. This is like a snack. This is not a full like continuing diet course meal. This is not a campaign. This is like a snack you have. And sometimes it's a really good snack, and sometimes it continues into a campaign, but often it doesn't. So, yeah.
Yep. The next question somebody asked in the YouTube comments was to talk about a time where you overplotted or overstoried your game. I think there's another one where they said underplotted as well, but anybody have any issues with that they want to share?
Always.
Okay, you got any one specific example you want to share?
They
All
mean
right.
to a detriment, not improvise out of it, Nelson. You're thinking
No. Just because I improv so much doesn't mean I don't prepare. I prepare like crazy, okay? But I'm also good at improving, and a lot of the preparation I can use to improv, like as a basis point. It's like the same one I was talking about was it was a Goliath game. The entire party was Goliaths. They were supposed to hunt down some chimera. No, manticores, sorry. And, I had like three encounters. One was supposed to be a pushover encounter. The next was, a slightly difficult, only made to weaken them slightly before fighting the first encounter, right? And they only got one encounter done. And I had custom remade the manticores. I had custom made the final boss. Everything. None of that happened. And then there was both Aarakocra games were over prepared, and they never did half of what was going to happen. It's an always thing. Unless you're prepared to severely railroad your party, you're going to end up over preparing or not preparing at all and just winging everything. At least in my experience.
Yeah, I had a campaign situation. It was actually the first D&D game I had run after taking, like I said, took about an 8 or 9 year hiatus from tabletop RPGs. And I had this entire kind of storyline worked out with this criminal organization in the setting. And there was one particular character, he was kind of the ringleader of this organization. And, I guess being overconfident, I had this plan, he was going to encounter the party, and he was going to end up in their custody, in fact. And he was very much a manipulative kind of, a real player type. He was this little halfling mobster, basically. And he was talking to all the members of the party, and each one at a time, as they had him tied up on this horse, and he was trying to convince them to kind of let him go, or making offers and deals and stuff, things that he could do, and how if anything happened to him, there was all these horrible things that were going to happen to people they cared about and all this stuff, and he was trying to basically get somebody to make a deal with him to where they end up letting him go and heal him a favor, something like that. And I had all this stuff planned out. I actually had like a couple pages of different like one-line kind of things for him to say and stuff like that, and little offers for him to make. And they just killed him. So it's like I had all this stuff planned out. I actually probably had several sessions worth of material involving this organization and this particular character. But they, one of the party members decided, no, fuck this guy. He talks too much. I'm cutting his goddamn head off. And she attacked him. And I pulled out all the stops. I mean, I said, okay, well, his hands were actually untied. He was just pretending to still be tied up. So I had him trying to escape on this horse and everything. And they just chased him down. And at the end of the day, I didn't want to just DM fiat it and say, okay, well, he gets away anyway no matter what you do. In the end, they ended up killing the horse that he was fleeing on and then chased him down, and they murdered him. And all that stuff I had to kind of change around, and I had to work in a new leader of the organization, and so I definitely I think I had overplotted, overprepared for that particular character in that particular scenario.
I gotcha. I guess another branch of that same question. Have you ever had, this would more apply, I guess, to campaigns than one-shots, but have you ever had a time where you, even if you didn't necessarily corner yourself into a plot like that, but you just laid out too much plot, and you wound up, even you were getting lost as to where people were supposed to go.
Anybody else?
I mean, not really. I got a short answer, and it's no.
All right.
It's the adaptability. The improv. As long as you see where they're going, even if it's within or without your plot, just adapt to the situation. I forget what the saying is right now, but it's like observe, adapt, overcome, or something like that. It's the same approach I try to have to both playing as a player and running as a DM. Is just observe what's going on, adapt to what's unfolding before you, and then create a situation where you overcome whatever difficulties that you have.
Also, write notes. Write notes. It's pretty vital.
One thing is with plotting. I had already multiple times where I would set out the huge intrigue plot, but it was kind of for the wrong. And what really happened is that I haven't had yet where I would write out a full plot, and then what happens often is that the players then do something else, or the campaign ends, and I cannot have the plot go on further. That's why I stopped really plotting that much, but I do want to get back to it again. Yeah, 300 gold for potatoes. Okay, that was against something that happened because I fumbled in the price for potatoes. So, and we had a whole plot about them buying potatoes to fill up a pit trap. And there's a king of potatoes apparently, who sells extra premium. I don't know, like potatoes or something.
Yes.
He grows them pre-salted, is what it was.
Yeah, pretty much.
I was definitely salty when I heard the price.
Okay, what was the question again? We got to get back on topic over here.
Well, it was about setting
we were
up
just
plot,
talking about
if you had to go off the cuff. That's what happened.
And what happened?
Okay, what happened is that basically, okay, there's a trap, and
I was
they
talking
wanted
to
to.
I know
Oh,
what happened.
sorry.
I've heard this story a couple of times already.
I got
Chepe unmuted and was like, and then disappeared. I want to know what happened, what he wanted to say. He's a wealth of knowledge, so he must share with the rest of the interwebs.
I was gonna say it's how not to get lost in your own plot, right?
Yeah.
Especially if you're going off the cuff.
Mm-hmm.
If the situation we're talking about is you improv something new or something's unfolding and you want to remember it, I actually agree with Alex for once and just take notes. Like notes is like one of the best things that you can do as a GM or as a player. It would life would be so much easier if everyone took a few notes. That never happens. I never agree with Alex. Alex is like, what? What's going on? For once.
Well, let me ask you guys this then.
I'm kidding, crap.
Kind of branching off what you were talking about a little bit ago. You said one of the best things to do is just improv.
To learn how to improv, yeah.
Well, that's what I was going to say. I mean, some people are naturally better at improv than others. But do you have any specific ways you kind of pump yourself up to be able to? I've done it to where if I'm doing something kind of mundane before my game starts, like if I'm washing dishes, I'll be, and it sounds super creepy for anybody listening to me, but I'll be having a conversation with my NPC just to kind of figure out off a script what he might say and how he might react. And I typically do surprise myself, and I get way better acquainted with this guy as more than an idea, and he actually turns into somebody that I can actually roleplay as. I didn't know if you guys had any other weird tricks.
Yeah, you're basically, it's something similar to that, but rather than creating an actual NPC, try in your head whenever you have the time to create a specific sort of character archetype, and then insert that archetype
where you want an NPC and then just change their names and make the minor adjustments afterwards. You know, like sometimes I do it with voices. Like, you know, if I talk like this, I have a specific kind of archetype and different ways that I react when I have this kind of voice. So, you know, that's just how it unfolds, and, you know, you do things like that. But that's like for a game specifically. One way that I practice improving in general is, you know, throughout the years of my life, I've always played with children, you know, telling them stories, playing G.I. Joes, you know, playing with my younger cousins with the dollies and whatever, or watching cartoons on mute and voicing the characters in the cartoon, trying to come up with a story fast enough to keep pace with the cartoon or even a movie. Like, I had a challenge where I sat down with a friend and we voiced Godzilla versus King Kong, but on mute. So we did the sound effects, the dun dun dun, you know, throughout the entire thing, voiced the people yelling at them, and created a different story than the movie. And that's just one way to, you know, to get into the hang of making improv easier for you and just having fun with it.
I think the big secret to improv is have no shame. A lot of people get hung up on this idea of it's like it's not right to do this, not right to do that. People have this whole there's a way to game and a way not to game, but there isn't really. You're all there to have fun, and essentially what you're doing for most players are improving, but they don't really realize. They say they come in with all these ideas. They're not. They improv to a situation that you deliver. It's the same way as a GM. You've just got to kind of take away the rules and just go, well, if I was playing X and X character, how would I react to the situation? This is how I'd react. Boom, gone. Or little bullet points, like Nelson was saying. He said archetypes, tropes. It's like I picked up a dice game for some newer players called Story Dice, where it's literally just little pictures. And you go, roll 6 dice, make a story out of the pictures and interlink them all. And it's like the amount of people that's just helped with little, you know, just little bits of improving, especially when they're starting out. They go, okay, and then it's just you just have to. A lot of it is confidence. An awful lot of it is just going, no, I know how to handle this. Go, and at which point people just get pulled into it. If you react like a person or a character would react, then you'll find no problems. There you go.
Very good.
I can say that from sort of improving, well, I don't improv like GMing at the moment, but like improving music and sort of improving just essays and stuff like that. I just find that I know vaguely learning the skills over and over again. It's just what I do, and then that sort of just gives me sort of like a ground to work off of, and well, that's how I plan on improving at the moment until I have a better strategy, I guess.
Well, that's what I said before about creating an archetype for NPCs. You know, if you're like an actor or a performer going on stage and you're delivering a live performance in a play, you have your character, you have the archetype for the character, how they're going to react, their kind of emotions, so that when you're on stage, if anything were to happen, you have that basis point to go from, because you've rehearsed. You know, you've gone through all the rehearsals, the readings, the going back and forth, the wondering where the character's gonna, you know, come from, and then you bring that character to your stage and just give them a different name. You know, you have your 2 or 3 different types of tavern owners. So maybe you insert this kind of tavern owner in this tavern, the warm, homely type, the guy that, you know, like in Cheers, everybody knows your name kind of thing. You know, and then you have the bastard that's out for a buck, you know, and then you have your criminal dude that's using the tavern as a cover, and then you just dip into Norm, dip into that bank that you've already created, like your prep. I think Chepe did this before, preparing to improv.
Prepared improvisation and improvised planning. That video,
Yeah. I forgot what it was called, but that, you know, as part of your prep, you're actually preparing to improv. That way, when something happens, you already have that. You have that little pull it out of your bag of tricks, and you're not necessarily improving 100% off the cuff, but you do have a jump off point. You do have a starting point that you could grow and move forward from.
Yeah, a lot of that, just comes from experience. It's not just game experience. It's like I said earlier, watching movies, reading books, TV shows, everything else. Just I think as a game master, you want to kind of pull in all of these experiences. Even it could just be somebody that you met at a bar one night, after work or something. Might give you an idea for an NPC or something. I know I've based an NPC before off of this crazy drunk Irishman I met in a really shitty actors bar in Chicago. But yeah, just things like that. It kind of it gives you all these different tools and stuff that you can pull from, and just paying attention to the shows you watch, the books you read, the world around you, etc.
And don't be afraid to be kind of cheesy. At
I don't know.
all.
You gotta be,
One of the best things you can do, especially when coming up with names, or this is just what I think of. When you're creating an NPC out of thin air because a player decided to do something like, oh God, really? And you just go with it.
Yeah, I want to go to the front of the theater and talk to the guy at the coat rack. Yeah, who's that guy? Who's working the coat check?
Yeah, like take very from wherever you're at, like simple names that you hear a lot, and then just name everybody those names. Like I constantly call back to Billy, Bobby, Tommy, and Tim for some reason, and it's kind of like a little trope. Go back to it. I ran a Star Wars game where they decided to go into some criminal underground thing that didn't exist before they went there, and meet some guy, just cause I don't know where, and he had two bodyguards that were Wookiees. Why were they Wookiees? Because I figured, Kodo and Podo, and it's. Don't be afraid to get a little cheesy at times. Sometimes somebody might enjoy it. It might be a callback to a childhood thing,
I mean, I would base characters off of different things too. I mean, I have literally invented an NPC that I have like put in almost every of my campaigns since, and it was basically me being pretty much inebriated through many beers, and it was me basically. You meet a wizard, and he's at the well, and what he says, and all he did was the first thing that he said, and that's his thing, is he says, "Well," and he's basically looks like Uncle Fester or something like that. There's a big cheesy grin, but he's like this demigod that kind of influences him. And he talks like this. Yes, you want to challenge the Tavern of the well. And then they said, and then they just started laughing, and I've been introducing, and it's a really stupid, cheesy character, but yeah, that's it. It's the Wizard of the Well.
Hey, Paul. So, anybody else have any more questions?
Yeah, we need more questions. I think we're getting more and more seasoned GMs and less newer GMs in this hangout. Has anybody posted anything else on YouTube? Because my computer's acting really funky right now.
No, I keep checking. I don't see any new ones.
Or on the Facebook thread, if you have questions, ask away.
I got a question. Since we do have quite a few GMs in the Hangout now that do have some experience, is there anybody in the group right now that is a GM that hasn't run a game through the one-shot group? And if so, why not?
Me, because time. Me, because I'm up at oh my god o'clock. Me, because life happens. I would love to. I'd love to have some time to sit down and just run some crazy, weird thing. I'd love to run a quick one shot of the day after Ragnarok. I'd love to run I'd love to. Yeah, look, Chepe's laughing out already. I'd love to run something inspired by half of the professional wrestling stuff I've done, but it's just every time I sit down to plan it, it's like, oh shit, yeah, I gotta go to work tomorrow. Or, shit, nobody's up at like 4 a.m. Oh no, hurt. And by the time I get home, I'm like, cannot game, must die.
If you're up at like 4 a.m. or if you think you're gonna be up, post it and find out.
Yeah, it's just one of those things. It's just when the opportunity comes to post, I'm like, where am I? Who is the?
There's been a lot of people before talking about. There's been a lot of people before that showed interest in like a wrestling one shot or even a wrestling series.
I was one of those people. In fact, I make a habit of collecting the systems because I'm intrigued.
As far as I know,
I do it as well as that's it's my secondary thing.
Yeah.
So it's like I equate wrestling to live action role playing with pain.
It is actually
very much is. That's where, to be honest, a lot of my improv stuff has also come out of that. So it's like you just learn to something's gone wrong. What do you do? Yeah, pick up and move on. Keep going.
Yeah, I haven't run one yet, and I've really wanted to, but it's the same thing as what Alex said. Nobody knows the system that I know best, and I don't know 5e well enough to run it.
What system? I'm cold.
Iron Kingdoms.
We have an Iron Kingdom.
I've run Iron Kingdoms campaigns, brother.
Yeah.
Did you run 3.5 version?
Oh no! I didn't run the 3.5. I know about the 3.5 version, but the one that I actually ran and have my most time in is the one that's more akin to the actual war game.
Oh, you have the new D6 version.
Yes.
Okay.
I've got I think I've got every book that's been released for Iron Kingdoms so far.
Really?
I'm just waiting for Unleashed to come out.
You see, now you've met people who will actually play the game.
I do, and that excites me to no end.
Yeah, just throw up because, like, I run 5th edition, and I'm kind of tired of running 5th edition because that's what everybody seems to know right now. I've tried to run 13th Age, but not many people know 13th Age. I
don't, but I'll give it a shot. There you go.
Yeah, and I was prepared for that one too.
That's how I ended up meeting Chepe. He went, try Idris Bay. I was like, I don't know. He's like, yeah, it's not hard. Like, okay, try.
That's gonna be one of my most fun, most enjoyable one shots I think I've played so far. The Idris Bay one.
We got 2 new questions on the YouTube comments.
We do. I see those as well, Nathan. But before we go, just before we move on to the next one, check. Is there anybody else here that runs games but hasn't run any through the one shot group yet?
Yeah, I haven't yet, and I wrote in the comment that it was because it's definitely a system that is not embraced by many, not popular, and that is Engineer, the greatest system ever made.
Okay. I'd be interested to see what it is. I'll have to check it out afterwards.
I've heard Alex talk about Engineer a lot. She's just never. He's like, again, one of those. The opportunity to play it. I'm not.
Yeah. Anyone else?
Well, I know I've been invited to games through the OSG, but I've never run one through the OSG. But that's particularly because I tend to be very picky, and I front load things. So if I'm going to run a campaign, to me that means about 4 months of consistent playing, consistency. And when I'm like running 5e, I usually attach a heavy modification on those rules to go for a specific style of play, a certain flavor of fantasy as they describe in the DMG. Generally, that's dark fantasy, so it's my pickiness, and generally it usually works out better if you spend some time getting to know people. I've noticed that in watching some games where people just randomly get together, that no one knows what they like, so nothing gels. Other times it works out great, but I like to avoid or minimize the possibility of a game not working out.
Right. Fair enough. So there you go. There's, 9 or 10 of us? 9 of us here in the Hangout, and 4 of which are GMs who haven't run games in the OSG yet. So maybe something that we can break that wall later on down the road. I'm gonna check out what Engineer is all about, Alex, anyway, and see what it is. And if it looks any good, then I'll put you under pressure to try to get you to run one.
Accepted.
Yeah. So, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off at the pass there, Nathan. I just thought before we started asking any more questions, we should finish the one we were on. And also, I saw the questions that were posted, and I want to direct one for Nelson. One of the guys watching asks, how do you deal with power gamers?
Be one. It's really that simple. This is how I deal with power. I love power gamers. I want power gamers. I welcome power gamers. But you have to be a power gamer and not a cheater, because I've found, especially more and more online, that power gaming is being relegated towards the people who don't read the rules correctly and quote unquote interpret them wrong. And that's not a power gamer. That's a cheater. You know, a power gamer is someone who reads the rules, understands the rules, and optimizes what they put together. And if you have somebody optimizing what they put together, good. That means I don't have to hold back so much. You know, because often when I run a game, I hold back a lot of the tactical decisions and intelligible decisions I can be making for my monsters, NPCs, and enemies, instead of just going full bore. And that's because I know that the players can't necessarily handle that stuff. They're already having too much of a problem handling stuff. But the easiest way for people to handle a power gamer is to know the rules. When they say, well, no, and they want to be a rules lawyer, you just say, this is my ruling for now. Find the page, paragraph, and sentence that supports your argument, and when you do, bring it up so that you're not slowing down the game. And just say, this is how I'm doing it for now. Fuck it. You know, if you don't know it, this is how it is for now. If it's actually different, we'll find out afterwards. But don't slow down the game. You know, if people are power gaming and they're too sort of advanced for you as a GM, just do what I said before. You know, I jump into rule systems by going into the player in combat first. Because I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I think that's where most notions of a power gamer comes in. You know, when it comes to dealing with roles and numbers. You know, am I wrong about that, or? Because it seems to be a huge argument, what is a power gamer? I think, really, it's just, you know, a gamer. You optimize in your role play, and then you're done with it.
I think for me, at least in my definition, there's two different things. You got a min-maxer who basically stays in the rules, but maximizes maximizes his power or whatever it is. Usually people think combat, but I was going to say you can also min-max for stealth, for diplomacy, whatever you want to min-max your character in. Okay, that just means that, and or magic or whatever. And then a power gamer is somebody who does that too, but in addition, tries to get away with as much as they can. And I think that can borderline to cheating. It can bleed over to cheating. I've seen that. So Alex knows what I'm talking about. But the thing is, I think that I think there's some people, you know, I do see your point that maybe we need a new rule, a new word simply just for cheaters. You know, so where there's dice fudging involved and using the rules incorrectly or using outdated rules or whatever. There's a lot of things they can do. So.
Yeah, but I think that's I don't know. Have control of your table. That's it.
I agree with the paper. Bring me the page and the paragraph, exact paragraph, and everything from the book that we're using at the moment. And then once you have it, show it to me, and then we can talk about this. This is like pretty much the only way to deal with it. Also, when you're playing online, always play with dice generators that everybody sees, not with physical dice.
That tends to be that's a good way to go if you're worried about dice cheating for sure. It only takes one dice cheater to kind of ruin it for the entire group. You know, if one person you think is cheating on the dice, then everybody's going to have to use the dice generator. I actually hate the dice generators myself because random number generation on a computer, which is, you know, a logical-based machine and not random at all, it just doesn't seem to make sense to me. And they do seem to fuck up all the time. I remember it was a percentile. What was I running? It might have been in Call of Cthulhu. No, actually, it was in Eclipse Phase. I was running Eclipse Phase, and one of my players rolled a 77 3 times in a row. Like, how does that happen? But that was Dice Stream. We had a good experience with Dice Stream also in a Fate game, didn't we, Nelson? Where like just every single roll that we made just sucked.
Yes.
And to the point where like pretty much half the party was they were just getting their asses handed to them. People were finishing that game missing limbs and just in a really bad way. Of course, we all ended up dying in the end anyway, but still. Yeah, I don't know. The other part of that question was about rules lawyers as well. How do you handle power gamers, and also how do you handle rules lawyers? It depends on what you want to consider a rules lawyer, I suppose, and it also kind of really depends, I guess, on the attitude of the rules lawyer. For me, I'm fine with having somebody at the table who has a really good understanding of the rules. That's great because it's a good resource to have. If there's something you're not sure how it works, they can usually tell you pretty quickly. As long as they're genuine about it, which what you were saying, Nelson, about if they're not taking advantage and trying to work the rules out and interpret it in a way that just benefits them at the time.
Well, I have no problem with people taking advantage of the rules as long as they don't create their own interpretation. The rules as written are the rules as written. That's how they're written in the book. All you have to do is follow the logical progression of the words. They may not always make sense, but they're what's written. And if you want to take advantage of that, you take advantage of that. Like sometimes during a game, if I have like a rules lawyer that they want to be better through a technicality, I don't try to force them. I don't go, well, no, not in my game. I'm like, okay, you're right. Well, here's the option. There's the immersion option, and then the rules as written option. So you can either meta or do what's cool. The choice is yours. Mm-hmm. And more often than not, people would choose the route not to meta. Well, okay, because you're kind of insinuating that they're not cool for it, that they're gonna suck. But the choice is still theirs. I mean, that's the rules, right? So you can use the rules, you can meta the situation, or you could just do what's cool, and then leave that up to them. And then you get a better idea and a better sense of who that player is and how you're going to have to address that player in the future.
Yeah. I honestly only ever had one issue with a rules lawyer. It was in a campaign, a home game that I was running a long, long time ago.
Wow, you lucky.
And, I don't really know. I guess I didn't really deal with it too much at that time. Just everybody fucking got annoyed every time he opened his mouth, which was, nearly every 30 seconds. But what I did now that I game online, I mean, I moved to another country and I do all my gaming online now. I just don't play with that guy anymore, honestly, because he was obnoxious about it, and he was constantly had to dominate every conversation, had to put his 2 cents in on every single scenario, even though he never really ran a game. He was always a player. But yeah, it just got annoying to the point where I just stopped inviting him to the games,
I've had to deal with that so much. And we see people like that also even in the OSG and in online communities that they don't run games, but they constantly have to put their 2 cents into...
Oh, yeah, that's another topic, yeah, with like just posts and stuff, yeah. People that come in that you never see them playing or joining any hangouts or anything, and then they just have to argue on every single topic. But yeah.
It's what I don't understand with people like this. It's like, especially when they're talking about we should have less drama, and then they're talking about we should have less drama. I'm like, why aren't you not playing a game? Start a game, whatever you want. Just say, hey guys, you want to stop bitching and playing a game, basically, or like just talking about like. Yeah. That's what I loved about the OSG, because I do like the RPG Brigade, but the problem with the RPG Brigade, it became just like, let's discuss chainmail bikinis, let's talk about rules as written, let's talk about I don't know, like something, whatever. It was always talking about the theory. It was and I would write, hey guys, you guys want to play, I don't know, Marvel Phase Rip? Okay, I want to do like a simple mutant-based superheroes game. And then I get basically 2 guys, and they were so obnoxious trolls that they annoyed the piss out of me. Okay, so and I'm not, but oh my god, and they were known to be like this, and because also in the Vampire live game they were like this, but it doesn't matter. I don't care about this. The OSG, what I loved about it, you got in there. It was about, hey, let's play a game. Let's do a game. I was looking, hey man, this game looks good. I was playing game left because I was always DMing, so I wanted to play. And then now I was playing all the time. I had to like cut down the gaming because then I got a job and I had to cut down most of the gaming. But I was gaming, and that was the cool thing about it. And now we can like post stuff, like even weird shit, and we're like, there's a chance. Yeah, I have posted games that people ignored or didn't happen, but I have posted games that the Rifts game is still going on. You know, I played in games that I had lots of fun with, and I have DM games, and that's why I like the OSG for that. You know, and I think, I don't know, like the Wild West is like a little bit a mixture of both. You know, it's drama, but people are also talking about doing games. So
yeah. Well, I just want to say one more thing, is that the question about the power gamer and the rules lawyer, I think the fact that there's terminology for it is what the problem is. Okay? The fact that we have issues with certain people and we put them in a box is we're segregating people, and that's what the issue is. You're a gamer, and that's it. You know, I'm a power gamer, but I'm an immersive gamer, and I'm a rules lawyer. So, you know, fuck all that. I'm a gamer. You know, if you have a problem with a person, then that's a problem with the person. It's not so much, you know, what type of gamer they are. Do they love to min-max, or do they love to just get into these in-depth descriptions? It's what kind of person they are, and handle that kind of person. You know, if you're not confrontational, or if you're not like an alpha type of personality, maybe you might have a little bit more difficulty being a GM. But if you have that alpha personality, if you're just used to taking charge of situations, being a GM is perfect for you. If you want to be the star of a game, if you want to take control of a game rather than being a player, be a GM. Because personally, I think people who play can't be the sole focus and star of a game. That's when a game starts to fall apart. When you get a good group always bounces off of each other. You know, like some people are hating on provokers right now, and you know, I think the provokers are cool. The provokers work because regardless of anything else, everybody that plays in the provokers bounces off each other. They click. You know, there's not like the one guy that goes, no, it's all about me always. I'm going to power game. You know, and then you give him, well, he's a power gamer. What can you do? It's not so much about that. If you got a dude being selfish, then be like, all right, go away.
Yeah, I mean, that's absolutely right. I mean, terminology comes because we need a thing to call the boogeyman, for example, but you're absolutely right. It winds up just being the person. And there are people who may be power gamers or rules lawyers, but when they know the good ones versus the bad ones are the ones who know when to shut up and when not to. And in regards to doing it via the OSG, because I feel like if you've got a home group, you have more of a chance, not always, but you have more of a chance of knowing these people previously, so they won't catch you off guard with, dude, why is he being such a dick? If it's like a pickup group you got from your game shop, then yeah, you're probably going to run into it. But if it's a home group that people you know, you'll probably be alright. With the OSG, you have the advantage that when you post, like the interest post for your game, you can leave it as detailed as you want, dude. You can say that, you know, I'm running a dark-toned game, and it's going to be, you know, I'm looking for heavy immersion, people who want to role play on the fly, people who are going to do house rules, Trump rules. Exactly. You say all those things first, and then whoever signs up, they know what they're getting into.
Yeah.
Not necessarily. People who are watching this and in the OSG, if there's a post and there's a description to the post, please read it.
Yeah, exactly, because you do get a lot of people just sign up for everything, but they don't read anything. You know, there was one rather prolific GM in the group once upon a time, and every time he posted a game, he had like the same 3 people signed up to play every single one of his games. You know anything about that, Nelson? I doubt that they read any of the descriptions of any of the games. They didn't even know what system it was. It's boom. He had this fan club that would just sign up to play every single game. But I'm just picking on Nelson a little bit. In fairness, though, yeah, definitely read the descriptions of those games and make sure it is something you want to play.
I don't
Because
know. I don't know where you think you're picking on me. I've read and I've actually
Oh, you read all
researched
of
the
it?
characters for those games that each and every one.
Oh no, you're
I've
correct.
researched.
Definitely.
Okay, so.
But no, just make sure you know what kind of game you're getting into, because there's nothing more frustrating than a GM. Like, for example, I like to run horror games, and if I'm running a dark, oppressive kind of horror scenario, I don't want people to come in playing, jester type characters and just chuckle fucking all through the adventure. You know what I mean? It just annoyed the shit out of me. So, there's another question that was posted.
Would I be able to have an answer?
Yeah, go ahead. Go for it, Paul.
So I think we've been dancing around something that I personally feel is the most valuable thing that you can learn as a player and a GM, and that is your preferences. Understanding what you like, what kind of actions you like to take in games that make you feel rewarded, that you enjoy. Because by knowing this, you'll be able to find games that focus on those kinds of interests, and have a better idea of what you're getting into, whether or not you'll enjoy it, what kind of content will create. If you don't know, then you might find yourself just losing motivation in your project, or getting into a ton of games you don't enjoy. Halfway through, you just go, "Oh man, this isn't what I wanted to play. This is nothing like I wanted to play." And then you give up. So, understanding yourself, what you like, can just greatly improve your experience immediately.
Definitely. That's very good advice. Actually, I have two more questions that popped up, so I'll just try to take which one came up first. I think I missed this one. Somebody said, I have an idea for a location and the beginnings of a plot idea. Where do I go from here?
Get players.
Yeah.
If you're on the OSG, do an interest post, see what people say, and sometimes they'll tell you the type of characters they want to play, and then you could just build off of that.
Absolutely. It kind of goes back to what we were saying earlier about preparation. You don't want to over prepare yourself. You have the idea for a location and a plot idea, the beginning of a plot idea. That's good. That's ready to run in my mind, as long as you have some players. So just, like Nelson just said, post an interest post, see who shows interest. If you can, and if you've been in the group long enough, you'll know kind of from people's reputations within the group of what they're like, when they do show interest, because a lot of people do get involved in the conversations, and you can kind of usually tell like who's going to be a chuckle fuck and who's going to be an immersive gamer, who's going to write a 10-minute intro for every single character they ever play, just for example. But yeah, get some players and just get ready to run your game, Maybe have a few encounters ready or something, but yeah.
Another good tip, if you've got the plot idea and the location, you might want to go off of what Juice recommended and just dip into the monster manual, see what sparks you, and kind of round out the rest of it.
Yep, absolutely.
Well, what I want to add, Paul said it basically best, is know your players. I remember one book. There's multiple books about good DMing, but there's one, Robin's Game Master's Laws or something like that. Robin Laws of Good Role Playing, something like that. And what he said that is there's basically these different types of players, and know basically what your players want out of the game. And this is really hard, especially if you make like an open game. Anybody can join. And as Paul said, you have people that want this guy, he wants to do combat and action and he doesn't care about shit. The other guy wants to do storytelling, deep, immersive, very serious stuff. And you've got one guy who's like the class clown, he just wants to fucking joke all the time. How do you bring all these together, And usually in a home game, it's like friendship. That's what bonds that together. And there's not another group, But in an online game, you can always say, there's other options, dude. This is not what I want,
That actually sounds like a perfect adventuring group. What are you talking about? You've got your chuckle fuck thief. You've got your chuckle fuck thief. Your deep immersive mage.
Make him a halfling or a kender if he's really trolling, if he really wants to.
No, kender. Never ever mention kender again. Kender don't exist. Okay, for all of you who don't know who Kender are, good. For those who do, just erase them.
I like that serious look Nelson had on his face for a second there. Like that was like in the camera serious moment right there.
No, I have a bad experience with a GM who roleplayed a Kender NPC.
You know, everybody who has a bad experience with Kinder, it's always a GM NPC that causes that bad experience.
No, because all right, correct me if I'm wrong with Kender, but I thought their fearlessness came from being too curious to know what's bad for them.
Kind of. It's like they just lack the ability to fear is kind of the way they explain it, which causes their curiosity to not be in check, and that's makes
the
up
bad
for
experience also was that the DM used the Kender and the quote unquote rules and law of Kender to hit on one of his players because he didn't have the balls to hit on her in real life. That's my bad experience. Just saying.
Like that is the worst no-go. Like, the meta flirting. That is just cringeworthy mostly.
I used to run a game at a game store, and that used to be one of the rules that I had for the guys. If a woman comes in and sits at the table because it was the open official game store game, you leave her alone. She's here to play a game, not talk to any of you. If she's here to talk to you, she'll talk to you after the game. Stop mouth breathing on her.
The problem with Kanders is like they are made to be annoying in a game.
Yeah.
Like they steal everything. Who could play together with that? Like that's their character.
I can play with that, but we spent like 40 minutes sitting at the table with this little Kender talking to this female character played by a female. Yeah, honey, yeah. No, I'm gonna fucking kill you. I fucking swear. And then he made him key to the plot. Like nothing could move forward without this Kender. So it's like, oh god, I'm playing a paladin and I'm about to just take my paladin hood away. I want to snap your neck. Because I'm about to snap your neck in real life, motherfucker. So just move the game along.
Tell that to my lawful neutral wizard who kinda, doesn't give a fuck about people. You steal my spellbook, you are dead.
I know. It was just one of those things. Using what he thought the rules were as an excuse to become, I have unlimited power. I am Dungeon Master. No, none of that. Sorry, I derailed.
Yeah, big time.
It's always the cartoon that comes to mind. My name is Dungeon Master. Welcome to the world of Dungeons and Dragons. And it's
That
like
Dungeon Master was
character.
dick in that.
I didn't know Yoda was the Dungeon Master. That's great.
He was still a dick. It's like I'm going to drop you into the most dangerous situation I can find, just for my own amusement.
Yoda, questions there must be. They're kids, no doubt. So yeah, let's play Dungeons and Dragons for real.
And, then there comes the episode where they should where they should have revealed actually the bad guy who you hate and has been hounding you the entire series actually also the Dungeon Master.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but
I was gonna say if that was a real game, the Dungeon Master would have became the ultimate bad guy. The sanity rules would have been in effect, and those kids would have lost their mind early in the season.
And the most honourable character would still be the Cavalier. Yay!
So to get us back on track.
Yeah, questions.
We have another question. We're about 20 minutes behind on this one, but
would I be able to give an answer to that last one?
Yeah, sure. As long as it's not about the Dungeons and Dragons cartoon or Kenders.
Not at all. This is some legit advice. So, if you have the idea of your location and plot, now this applies for more linear or a structured style of play. But first, look at your characters, look at the players, look at why are they in this location, or why would they want to go to this location, or where are they to start off with. If you want them to go to that location, then you need to provide a motivation. Now, a good way to do this, I've found, is that people of value who can offer goods or services end up needing help, and not the kind of help that can be solved just by giving them money or by buying goods. It's something like you end up having a trader who he brought all of these leather goods to you, but he turns to you and says, "Look, my daughter goes out and plays in the woods every once in a while, but she was supposed to be back an hour ago, and I'm worried about her. There's rumors that are going around that there's witches out in those vents. And I don't necessarily believe that, but see, I just don't have the power, the skill to wield a weapon. Now, I gave you the sword. Why don't you put it to use, please? So it's once you start playing on that, you give motivations that way. You kind of humanize issues, and you go, oh, monsters aren't just things. They're not just meat bags with hit points just associated to them. No, these things terrorize people. Then again, it has to do with what kind of game you're going for. But I tend to like to make monsters scary by having them attack children, by having them raid towns. There's a reason to lock their doors at night. Those making it clear that they are a menace. So also allowing players to learn about these things. It can be a lot of fun to talk to citizens and go, okay, I now have, since I've talked to this person, I've learned where they are. I have learned that they are weak to something, and I've learned that they're strong to something, and that they have, say these witches have magic that can paralyze you if you stare them directly in the eyes, or something along those lines. Well, gathering that information, you're not prepared to go up against these witches if you want to. Think of renown, think of rank, think of other ways beyond monetary rewards to reward your players. Something like the people in the town thank you for helping them with this witch problem because the children were being eaten by these witches or brewed into their own cackling potions. And now, since these people like you, they're willing to do favors for you. They're willing to risk their lives or their goods or their good name. Like, hey, I got this new stock. I shouldn't really give it to you, but I'm going to give it to you because you solved this problem. So I'd say focus on the motivations and then framing the problem as a serious issue. And don't think about story as I'm pushing you down this railroad. Story is past tense. Look at plot. Look at events, because those are things that players can engage in. You want to think about things that they can do, not just sit there and everyone sit in a circle and we just tell each other a story and go around in a circle.
Yeah, I agree with him on that. This is not, you're not passing around the story stick. Story is what's unfolding before you as everyone is playing.
I also agree with Paul with the motivation. Motivation. That's what I'm saying. That's important. That's a key to every role-playing game, I think, and that's pretty much it. So you can, if you motivate players the right way, the characters, that's then truly powerful. And I remember once also with the non-monetary gain, I remember I had one of the characters died from a quest, and it was a more minor quest, but she got a statue, and I thought that was pretty cool. So.
Yeah, I was just going to ask, what was the question? Because I kind of came in the middle of you guys answering, if you don't mind. It sounds like it's how to start doing a campaign, or at least an adventure. Is that right?
Yeah, the question was that the person has an idea for a location, the beginnings of a plot idea, and just where do they go from there to get their game rolling, you know?
Okay. I didn't hear some of the responses, but I do have an idea for the person who has that question. I like the way Dungeon World presents it. Essentially, you come to the table with an idea of something to do your first adventure, like a seed. Like, let's say you find a goblin or something inside the monster manual that could cause a minor problem, but the whole first game is kind of an exploratory to ask questions of your players about who they are, what they're looking for, why they're out there, things like that. And you can continue those questions throughout the games to kind of further develop and make sure that your game is going according to what the players are looking at. And yeah, somebody just mentioned inside here, threats are not always monsters. They can be resources and things like that. That's one of the things that Dungeon World kind of harps on as well, is that that resources may be a greater problem than necessarily the goblins that are out there, because yeah, the goblins are a problem, but maybe the real problem is the fact that the traders don't want to deal with the goblins. So maybe you can find an avenue that doesn't necessarily rely on combat but still solve the problem. And I think that's kind of a good way to at least do your first game. As far as like planning your adventures around the region, consistency in your encounters is always super good for immersion. Like having a roll chart that is specific to that region, so that you can have random encounters that are commonplace, so that if they're in this city and wolves happen to be a problem, they can see in game that wolves are a problem.
Yeah. Well, I think not. I mean, the more we talk about it, the more I think about this. Is to starting a game, you only really need 3 things. And I'm going to use the word fight, but fight doesn't necessarily mean combat. All right, but you need to come up with something to fight, a place to fight it in, and a reason to fight it. Everything else is just fluff.
Conflict. Conflict is a better word.
Conflict. There you
conflict.
go. Yeah. Come up with a conflict. Come up with an area that conflict takes place, and come up for a reason of why that conflict exists, or a reason for why that conflict exists, and everything else is just fluff. You know.
Or a reason why the party want to get involved in that conflict in the first place, because you could set up a conflict and then you have a party of people that say, well, yeah, we're going to go the other way then. So.
Yeah, I was gonna say if you're like me and you're always concerned about that, I would plan 3 conflicts just in case.
Well, yeah, if you boil everything down to like 3 simple things, it's easier to have extra stuff. Rather than having to worry about, all right, well, conflict. Well, it needs to take place in West End Village, and everything needs to be here, and I need to plot down. Okay, we have Jim Duggan, who's been a lumberer, a lumberjack for the past 27 years, and he's been hacksawing the trees down. Okay, we have him. What else is going to be in West End Village? And then plotting an entire village and everyone in the village and giving everyone names and really going in depth and just getting really immersed in your own world creation. And then your players go, yeah, we're not going to go there. We're going to go to the east. And then you're like, oh shit, now what do I do?
It'll happen every time. Every time you spend like a good long time planning something, they will immediately take a right turn.
Yeah, it's like, okay, well, conflict. There's goblins. There's goblins raiding a town, right? Now, the reason for the conflict is that the goblins are being hunted by something bigger. Not the reason why they need why do the players need to have to get into the conflict, but if the conflict has a reason, then your world is a world rather than just a scene.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
And that's a good point. Like you said, maybe like the scenario I was saying, your village is being attacked by goblins, and the real problem is not necessarily the goblin attacks because the guards can take care of that. It's more that the traders can't get in. So your players have 3 avenues of investigation that they can go and kind of picking their own adventure just with that. Say giants are pushing the goblins out, and that's why they're attacking. So you've got the bigger threat, the goblins themselves, and then you've also got the merchants, and that gives the players the 3 easy options that are all still technically together. Yeah. So that's kind of what I was getting at with planning 3 adventures, kind of an idea.
Spreads out.
Yeah, she's kind of a mess. She'll probably appear at least 9 times in this thing.
All right, so before we go off on another tangent, let's get another subject. What was that next question?
Okay, I gotta find it again now. You said.
All right, that's clear. We got time for tangents.
Are your favorite settings the same for running and playing? So, for example, I love playing post-apocalyptic games, but I would rather run fantasy. That's what the person said. That's not me talking. So.
I think that comes down to a personal preference thing for anything. Because me, I'll play pretty much anything at least once and have done, except maybe Paranoia. I played Paranoia once and I've kind of swore it off, but just because I just didn't like the game at all, even though it was an intriguing setting.
Well, the question's about setting rather than game.
Yeah, but the thing is, where it comes to setting, a lot of that. I mean, I know people who prefer to run superhero games. They'll never play one because they're like, no, I know too much about the universe. I don't want to interrupt everything. Whereas like me, I don't think there's no right answer. As somebody else just said, there's no right answer. It's all based on what you like. I think it is all personal And that's the thing is, I think I think I'm the wrong person to be answering this question because I'm extremely open because I'm like, yeah, whatever, throw it all at me.
Like I'll play and I'll run just about anything.
Yeah.
See, I'll play in just about anything. Like even games that I haven't played yet, that I've heard of still sound interesting. Like I really want to play Call of Cthulhu. 90% of these crazy crackpot games that people cook up with the Fate system, I want to play most of them. Of course, like 5e, I like Iron Kingdoms. I played a somewhat Numenera game, even though it kind of got screwed up. I played a Numenera game with Lloyd this morning. I'll play just about anything. But I have no interest in running Call of Cthulhu or Numenera. I don't have an interest in learning Fate, even though it would be cool to create your own stories. That doesn't sound fun. I just want to run fantasy. Fantasy's like my home wheelhouse.
Yeah, I again with the whole personal thing, I think it's just what are you comfortable with? You know.
There's something I've come to not wanting to run as of late. I used to be something that was considered my speciality. I used to run the hell out of zombie games. I loved zombie.
Oh yeah.
I loved zombie apocalypse, but to the point where it's like I really got into looking at the ideas and the psychology and the way horror stories and the way zombie apocalypse specifically is done, and ended up going on this long rant with my friends about how the best way to do zombie apocalypse is to focus on the people, not the zombies. Then The Walking Dead happened. And I went, I'm not running another zombie game until...
Well, The Walking Dead, the graphic novel or the actual series? Because the novel's been...
Both. It was just like...
yeah, I used to work at a TV company. Thanks to The Walking Dead, I want nothing to do with any sort of zombie flick or TV show.
Now it's like, I'll play, but I won't run anymore because I'm like, no, because what I'd run would be too close to this. Is that why? Because to me, that's how you do it. You have to focus on. It's about the people. It's about. I kind of went up on a rant about how the show. I ended up talking about how the show can't run for long because survival for a lot of people eventually gets boring. It turns into cyclical. It's like it's just moving on from one place to the next or finding a. Once you get to a certain point, it is just rinse, repeat, rinse, repeat, rinse, repeat. Which as far as the dramatic situations go, can only go so far unless there's internal conflict. Which is all it's with especially with I will say specifically zombies apocalypse, it's got to come from two places: people or The Walking Dead. Really, everything else is. It's just that's me going on about what I think should happen with other things, but that's why I eventually came to this. No, because eventually you'll lose. What do you mean? You'll lose. During time, it's not on your side. You'll just lose. And that's why I essentially talked myself out of zombie apocalypse games. Because I just went. I don't see a win condition without making it feel cheesy. It's small victories, and a lot of players want big victories. They want the cure. They want this. They want that. They want, and that's just in my experience. But it's just the game I'd want to run. It's like no, there are no big victories. Have fun.
Yeah, that's kind of the thing about a zombie game. A lot of people have to understand that, and apocalypse games too, just in general, that it's about smaller victories rather than bigger victories. A big victory is having enough food for everyone for the day.
Yeah, I prefer those small victory games though, both playing and running, over the massive sort of toppling a kingdom type of games.
That's funny that you bring it up. Like, I can run kingdom building games, but I hate being part of them. I don't really care to build games, and I'm trying to, because in Lloyd's game we're going to build a kingdom, and that happens to be part of it, and I'm going to try it with somebody else other than my normal group, and maybe it's just I'm burned out with my particular group about kingdom building. So maybe that's an idea for you if your question is centered around you being burned out about a topic, is try it with somebody else and maybe get some new angles in there, because if your players tend to go to the same trope a lot, they probably go about it in similar ways, even though it's maybe not verbatim the same way they did it before. But I can see the question having some value, because for me, there's a couple genres that I can run, I just don't care to play in.
Yeah, I think that would have been a better question. Why are you? Why do you like to play one type of setting, and why do you not like to run that type of setting, or vice versa? Be a
Well,
more
to put it back to what Ben was saying, I have to preface it with the games I run are primarily primal, tribal, survival, dark fantasy in a frozen wasteland. That's my, or in like Dark Sun. That's pretty damn close. I enjoy those high survival settings, but what Ben was getting at is with zombies, there's no variety, or there's a very low amount of variety. And what I found you need to do to keep up, make the survival interesting, is progression. You need to make it clear that there is a progression. So an example is I have a custom durability system. There are different tier materials that you can get to increase weapons that have different durabilities and different properties. So it's something to work towards. You're constantly working towards something. And it's not just weaponry or armor, it's upkeep. It's it's resources, learning tool proficiencies, crafting things. But also, I've built a lot of racial tension with the custom races I have, where it's very clear that there's not an aggression between them, but there's a, you like taking the corpses of the dead and reviving them, and I see that as an abomination. So not like I run up and just slaughter you, but wow, we're really different. And sometimes that's exaggerated, sometimes it's not. But by making these focusing on the races, you can get some. You don't have to worry so much about the locations, because the locations come naturally. What you end up having to do, or the kinds of elements you include, such as mysticism, if you want to, such as in my setting, there are no gods, which means that the souls of the dead are trapped in the aurora borealis and on this plane. That leads to some different scenarios, and different races have different views. Like the dwarves that I have, they think that undead are just magic. It's magic is inherent in this setting, in this world, and that magic is just imbued into these corpses when the sources, the ley lines of magic get charged. So all of the corpses in the area start to walk around. They're imitating life, but they are not living. Just working on those views and customs, not necessarily culture, but customs, and just when you add those two elements, you can really get a lot of mileage out of the survival style games.
Cool. Okay.
Can I just ask a question?
Yeah?
How do I get players to be more, I don't know, they're not too into like role playing, I guess, or just try and get them more enthusiastic about getting more into it?
More into character, you mean?
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Like rather than just numbers on paper and rolling the dice and.
Yeah.
Refer to all your players by their character name first off.
Yeah, that's a big help. Like something you can do from a GM is just make sure you write down all their character names and try to use those instead of using player names. But it really it's a comfort level, you know. And some people grow into it. Some people probably never will. Some people will always prefer to use a third-person perspective. Some people prefer to use a first-person perspective. It really kind of depends on the dynamics of your specific group and who you're playing with. You can, with the one-shot group anyway, you can, Alex says you can give them all lobotomies, there's that too. But with the one-shot group, you can you can put that into your post when you post up your game. You can say you're looking for a deep, immersive role play. You want people to get into characters and talk in first person, etc. I mean, you can really set up whatever parameters you want. But I think it comes down to just your players getting comfortable, maybe having a little bit of experience with the game. You know, it really depends on what they're into. Like Paul said too, what do they like? What do they enjoy? You know.
Okay. Yeah, those are pretty good points. One thing that I'd suggest, I suggest this because I'm bad at it, is giving NPCs viable, realistic names. because if I have to name an NPC for my player on the spot and I don't happen to have my book of NPC random names written down in front of me, there's a chance he's going to get a name like Joe, Chip, Steve, whatever one-syllable name I can think of at the moment, and he will be just terrible, and it will entirely break the immersion. So it is good for you to have like name generators floating around, or at least a book that you've written down like 10 or 12, like just names that are solid names for the area you're in.
I always pull up lists on the internet for that.
I mean, that little factor of having your players be acknowledged, like if you acknowledge the players always in character, except for like details that you're describing the scene, that's going to help reinforce it, setting it up to where you refer to them in their character names, you refer to the NPCs by the NPC names, not the baker from Brokenstone. It's Josiah from Brokenstone. And then they'll make the connection, oh, it's the baker, and you'll notice that they'll start to do it on their own. The alternative is you could be like me and throw your players in the deep end and find yourself a game like Fate or something like that and say, hey, I want to do a one-shot of this where role-playing is kind of the name of the game. And if you present it as a one-shot, they're a little bit more receptive to it, to try it if it happens to be your normal group.
And another thing, too, that helps is engage them in what's the word I'm looking for? In character conversations. So if your current NPC at the time in the scene is the barkeep, then just try to pick up your own voice for that barkeep, whatever you think he sounds like, whatever accent you think he has, and introduce him, use his name, and just engage them in an actual conversation, just like they're actually talking to the person. And sometimes that will ease them into taking on the role of their character and like, oh, what would my guy say? Okay, and then they'll try to adopt their own voices, perhaps not, again, comfort levels, but it's just something you can do to try and kind of kickstart the role play.
Yeah, role play with them as a GM rather than don't be the computer, be the actual NPCs, or at least the important ones. And another thing that might help is if you let them know beforehand, play your character and don't play your character sheet. Or if they have a question where this is a GM pet peeve of mine, I can't stand it, is when a player goes, yeah, if I walk away from him, will he punch me when my back is turned?
To be fair, that accent's very annoying.
Yeah, well, you know what? That's what it sounds like every time I hear that. It's like,
it just
dude,
gets
it's a role-playing
auto-tuned to
game.
that for him.
Yeah, it's a role-playing game. Play your character. If you want to run away, run away. Don't ask me if it's okay to run away. Because sure, I'm going to tell you, go ahead, do it. Something might happen, but go ahead, do it. Just let them know to play rather than just like, don't be confined to your character sheet. Play your character.
I've actually run one shots where the character sheets have no numbers on them whatsoever. I'm a huge fan of this. It's strictly role playing from the player's end. They don't know their attack bonus. They don't know their armor class. They don't know their skill checks. They just know the equipment that they have, the sword that they have, and their name and things like that. They know they're good at acrobatics or they're really strong, things of that nature. And what it does is it syncs them. They're not looking at these numbers constantly. Oh, if I roll this, I know that I can hit this. They have to actually role play these things out. And
yeah, that's that deep end aspect I was talking about. As like a one shot, you can totally get away with that. Most people are open to doing a one shot because they feel like we're gonna try it. If we like it, we like it. If we don't, it's not a big deal, kind of a thing. And that's kind of a cool way to do it.
When let's just say in a fight, because for some reason people worry more about numbers when they're fighting. Role play an NPC. Like, I've described areas and described enemies and had enemies use specific types of dialogue that make them seem larger than they are mechanically. And if they choose to fight, then they'll know this guy was just. For me, not knowing a less colorful way of saying is popping shit. Have your NPCs pop shit. If they're a tavern owner and they're running a bar, Maybe they want to be intimidating. Don't yourself relegate everything to a role. I've heard this before, and I like it, where only roll dice when there's a conflict of interests. When there's a conflict of interest between yourself and one of your players, then maybe a dice needs to be rolled. But until that arises, don't even worry about it.
One more thing that I kind of thought about, if your players are concerned about numbers, an easy way to get them to start role-playing is when they roll their attack, ask them what their attack looks like. And honestly, they'll do it right away. I mean, like I do it instinctively, so that's why I didn't think about it at first. But if you get in the habit of doing that, you're going to see that they're going to start to role play in your combat, which will carry to their social situations as well.
I started doing that for my for a heroes game I'm running in the real world. I'll just when they say I hit them, I'm like, no, don't just say I hit them. How?
I mean, it could be as simple as I throw a haymaker, or they could get real crazy with it. And let's say they're playing a monk and they want to do an attack they call Elephant Snatches Coconut, which is a real thing in Muay Thai where they step on your knee and ram their kney into your chin. That's awesome.
Yeah.
For me,
I got that thing too. It do it so I just unconsciously do it that I forgot to mention it.
Yeah, like as you were talking, I was like, oh man, I can't believe I didn't say that.
It shouldn't be about the pluses and minuses. It should be about the cool attack name. Is what you're saying. Yeah. It should be about how it looks, not what the end result is. Yeah, it should
or
be.
How about phrasing it like this? As a game master or dungeon master, when you're with your party of players, be less about the numbers and reward people who are less about the numbers. And then when they're more about the numbers, you be more about the numbers, and chances are the numbers are not going to be in your players' favor. So that they're like, well, I get more done when I'm not worried about it, So what I want to do, instead of saying, well, how far is he? Is he 30 feet away from me? Because I want to move towards him and get my attack, and I know I can only attack him because he's 30 feet away. Because is this difficult terrain? I got to get that out of the way because I know that, difficult terrain, blah, 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 blah. If they say I want to charge and attack him, just, yeah, sure. Or he's a bit too far, or, be about it yourself as the DM if you want your players to be about it. Okay, now we're quiet. Why is it quiet?
Did that answer your question,
Ready for
Anthony?
the next one.
All right.
Did that answer your question, Anthony?
Yeah, that was really good, actually. More than I was expecting.
Cool.
That's
Chelsea,
a topic that we all mule around with for quite some time.
Chelsea asked a question a while ago. Wanted to know, do you guys practice voices and accents, or do you just kind of use your own voice most of the time?
Voices, accents, and mannerisms all the time. The one thing that I hate about doing online gaming is that I can't stand up and perform.
Oh, dude, you and me both.
Because I love doing that at the table. I'll get up and I'll pace back and forth, and then I'll look at the players, like dead at the player, and address them as their characters in a voice. Instead of saying something like, oh, he looks you up and down, or he looks at you like you should. Turn around and not have to narrate any of that. Actually act it out. And I do the whole... if you know me, you know I do voices all the time. I actually can't stop doing voices. I do voices all the time. Not even role-playing.
Yeah, I found that doing accents it's one of the few things where the more you put into it, the easier it gets. Just like Nelson was saying, it is harder to do on online gaming, but if you move around, it does help. Remember that an accent isn't just the way. I have to do a voice. Okay. Well, I will actually. It's not just the way you say the words. Like, you might do like a British accent like this, and this is a bit of a lowly kind of accent. But then if you do a Spaniard or a Frenchman similar to this, it should not be the same. You have to change the cadence. Like if you check out like a Spanish or an Italian accent, it's very like they're super rapid fire when they talk. So if you're actually going to go into it, you should think about how they're talking, the cadence, and yes, their mannerisms, but the mannerisms of the people they grew up with as well. And one thing, when I'm coming up with a voice for my character, I try not only to think of the accent I want, but I try to think of their size and their race, because that'll obviously change what their voice is. How did their life events, if I have their backstory, how did their life events shape how they're going to talk, shape what they're going to say? Is there any, even if you're just making it up as you go, is there any kind of weird slang or phrases that they say back home that he just carries with him? Instead of saying anyway, he says any days or any roads or any house, something like that. Instead of saying yes or no, he says yeah or ne. Just some little things like that, it really starts to expand them.
Yeah. And like I said before I forget what the question was, but nothing is sacred. Don't worry about doing a cheesy accent. Do it anyway. Do it anyway. Even if you got to get stereotypical, do it.
I've mentioned it before. I was gonna say I've mentioned it before. I get super nervous on the camera. I don't know why. I can do voices in person, but anytime I do a voice on the camera, I got to turn off my camera so that I can do the voice for the game. And if I have the camera on and everybody's smiling because they're having a good time about it, I get nervous and I start laughing and I screw up my own accent. So the last time that I did one, I was gonna say if you happen to be like me and you get a little camera shy or whatever the situation is, what I found to be useful is I'll stand up and I happen to have a wireless headset. I'll step over just slightly to the side, and then I'll do what Nelson's talking about, where I'll walk around my own house with nobody there, act out the mannerisms so that I can keep this idea of who this person is, so that I can keep their speech and their pattern correct. You mentioned their colloquialisms, things like any days instead of any day. That is one of my favorite things to do. I made a thief that used the word dove to explain anybody who he thought couldn't defend himself, and then he would give people nicknames based upon predatorial animals if he thought that they were sufficient to be able to defend themselves. And he had no pity on anyone that he called a dove. And it took our wizard 8 games to figure out that I was basically saying he's useless the whole game. But that's actually a really fun aspect of finding that. And even if he talks in your normal voice, you can do a speech pattern and still convey who that character is very easily through a speech pattern.
What you're saying is that, if you want to talk kind of fast, right? But you stutter a little bit. It kind of the ambiance and whatever. That's what I'm trying to say. The little ambiance of the character. Kind of even if you're using a normal, things like that.
I mean, sometimes it's I found myself in the unfortunate position of having to role-play out a conversation between 2 NPCs. I was thankfully I had it in my brain what these 2 NPCs were, but it's because I was running a DC game and I had Harley and the Joker. So I had to do that conversation. So I said, hello, Harley, how are you? Well, Puddin', how are you? And I ended up doing the whole Mark Hamill thing. I just got up and because I found that he's right. That's the key to the Joker. You've just got to fucking everywhere.
Well, movement helps play.
Oh, how you doing, Puddin'? I don't know what you're saying. Yeah, I mean, and then it's really weird people going, "You do a really good Harley Quinn."
Movement, yeah, but movement helps.
Movement really helps.
Because it's all part of the performance. To feel more natural, sometimes I'm talking with my hands right now in my normal voice, even though you can't see it, but it sort of helps, And then sometimes if you have a character that you can imagine having a tick, constantly shifting their shoulders from side to side. Maybe they have a shifty personality. Maybe they never believe in anything they're saying themselves, even when it is the truth, because they're so used to lying. Sometimes that little shifting your own shoulders from side to side or looking off to the distance adds to the performance, and then that translates into your audible performance.
Yeah, one of my favourite ones is if I'm ever doing the tough mercenary, is if I've got a cup on hand, I'll just put it over there and I'll be talking down into the cup because I always imagine that the bitter mercenary always has a drink. Always. So it's just you don't want to go down there, mate. Bad shit happens down there.
So to answer the question, though, I am bad at descriptions. Descriptions are my weak point, and I know this. So I try to pull the three-act Monty. Voices are one of those distractions, because I can communicate through those voices better and mannerisms more effectively than in terms of just a third-person omniscient point of view describing a scene, or a third person, this is what they say. Um, so a couple things that I'd like to point out. First of all, I think it was Nathan, and I happen to be bilingual, speak French. So the French accent comes easy. You can do a Quebecois one, or you can do a Parisian French. Whereas if you try to do something that is a bit more Quebecois, you're going to have some pauses in between, and they're going to mix up English words with French words. Um, and there's things like, with that, it's all in the back of the mouth, except for the R's. The R's are at the front of your mouth, with the tongue. Whereas languages like Spanish, a lot of Latin languages, French being an exception with this, but it's at the back of your jaw, kind of back of your throat, is where you do the R's. And what helped me is that I am a vocalist, and a lot of your breathing techniques help you understand and how to channel the air to different parts of your mouth. If you want it to hit the top of the roof of your mouth, certain accents work well with that. But if I'm trying to do an impression of someone who has kind of an Irish accent, let's speak a little bit faster and have a bit of a joke here. There's always an upwards inflection on the end of what you're saying. And then if you try to do an Australian accent, you're going to lose that tongue. And a lot of things like the A's are R's, the double E's are bears. You want to go get some bears. But those are a couple of examples. I mean, if you want to do, say, one voice that I enjoy doing, but requires a lot more, force from your abdomen in terms of channeling it, and you're speaking with the bottom of your mouth. What are you talking about? Sugar tits, you gotta come over here and make me a sandwich. You can get all sorts of depending on the force that you push out, that air, it'll hit your vocal cords differently to create a more ruptured kind of look. You can kind of get this sort of someone who's had too many cigarettes kind of going, a bit of a Boston thing going. Really, it's about believability, not perfection, because there are many different dialects. Whereas this is another one where I push my jaw forward. My name is Warren Bros, and at this point I am speaking with the lower end of my jaw, elongating it to open the space in my mouth. And where you learn a lot of this is not just vocal practice, but there are excellent videos for people who do accents on YouTube, where they explain a lot of this, because the subtle differences. Like if I'm trying to do the French, they replace a lot of PH is with D's. Just things like that. Paying attention to those things sells your accent a bit more. Whereas there's also a Scottish accent. This is like a really robust, bravado kind of a Scotsman. And you can try all those, like they're not real accents in terms of their believability, in terms of being accurate, but it's just trying to convey something, convey an emotion, convey what the character's personality is through the way they speak. So slowing things down, adding pauses in between, there's a lot you can do there. So yeah. Or the Russian accent. I love doing this one because it's all about sort of closing your mouth. And it's at the front of your tongue, because the arcs. So it's just kind of a slur on the side. But yeah.
Yeah.
Alright, you set the model. We all have to talk in our own little accents now for the rest of the video.
What are you talking about? Shut up and go grab me a beer.
No one can no longer talk in their normal voices anymore.
Well, I
well,
can.
you know,
Ones. Fucking bastards.
As another person actually added on to the question and said, what do you do if you're a GM or a DM who can't do accents or just doesn't do very good accents? What do you do in that case? And I think I'm the perfect person to answer that question because I'm awful at accents, and even though I try to study them sometimes, when I do try, I have a go at it sometimes, but it just always comes out awful. I focus on other things. I think you have to accept your weaknesses and sometimes just focus on your strengths. I can be pretty good at descriptions. I can even be good at mannerisms, vocabulary, because different people will use different vocabulary rather than just not just the way they pronounce words, but the words that they use, and maybe just different types of pitch and tone and things of that sort. You can focus on if you're not very good at doing accents. If you want to see a good example of me butchering any kind of accent, check out my Scooby-Doo versus Cthulhu game, where I had it set in the deep bayou in 1970 Louisiana, and yeah, it was pretty awful, really awful. In fact, I kind of hope Robert Ogre never watches that game because he tried to coach me and tried to help me out with how to do the bayou accents, and I just couldn't get it.
I would say
Sorry.
The big key is, I think, and also a big piece of advice to give any GM is, don't worry so much about it. You can practice all you want. Some people will nail it. Some people won't so much. Nelson was saying earlier, have no shame. If you throw it out there and they say that didn't work, you're like, yeah, whatever, carry on. It's if it's not working and it's obvious it's not working, shift. I think there's a lot of people do get worried about, no, what if I don't present it right? Don't worry so much. Just don't worry so much.
A trick I picked up, just because doing DM and like the roleplay stuff isn't sadly to admit not the first time I started using voices. But one of the tricks that I've always used for myself, and I actually can keep my mic up so I don't blast you guys' ears. One of the tricks that I've always used is I'll have a keyword or a key sentence that can always start my accent. For my Boston Chainsmoker, the word is beer. I always say beer, and then I turn on the mic, and then I do the accent all the way out. I do, if I don't say so myself, I do a fantastic Annie impersonation, and I'll always kind of like tighten my throat up a bit, and I'll start and I'll go, "You smell like burning. Have you seen my bare timbers?" And then what's the other one? "I'm rubber and you're on fire." And sometimes I'll mess it up. Sometimes I won't, get the gruff sound in the back of my throat, but that doesn't mean, you stop. You kind of just roll with it. Sometimes you're going to mess it up, but, like I said, keywords can really, really help you get going on things.
Yeah, the idea of doing those mannerisms. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Nelson.
No, I was just saying that was great.
Yeah, it was
I'm
very
a League
good.
fan, so I enjoyed that greatly.
Thank you. Oh, I do in a moo too.
Well, what I was going to say is the nice part is when you learn certain mannerisms or slang, if your character's voice is not 100%, you can stock it up to that character just having a different voice or personal accent. Because if you listen to me, I live in Texas, but I don't sound like I'm from Texas. But that's because I was born in California, I joined the Navy, traveled around the world, learned a bunch of different accents, how to speak a couple languages, and then moved to Texas. So I have a very strange accent, which doesn't fit with my surroundings. But I still use some of the words that I learned in Boston and California, so that makes me stand out even more. So if you happen to have one that sounds weird, that could be an aspect of who he is.
Yeah, don't worry about it. Like I said, nothing's sacred. Don't worry about it. If it's cheesy, if it's bad, just do it. Because sometimes I do voices too, and it don't even have to be dealing with role playing games. I do them everywhere. Sometimes, in certain jobs where I had to answer phones, I just answer in different voices, and people just go with it. And even when I was a cashier, I would be changing my voices from customer to customer. Sometimes they wouldn't even know what the hell. Where you from? You have a very interesting sounding accent, and
That's hilarious that you mentioned that, because that's exactly how I started doing voices. I worked at a campground. up in Maryland for a year. And every time, these people were in and out. You never saw them again, so it didn't really matter if you embarrassed yourself too bad. And you could kind of like get an idea of like who the person was and who they were going to react better to, because sometimes these were very angry campers and something was wrong. So sometimes you just get yourself a good little Southern draw on, and they think you're a sweetheart.
I do declare.
That's where I go to get out of trouble.
Look, I don't know about all this. Don't forget, best thing, don't be embarrassed. Screw all that. I never get embarrassed for anything because I don't care. If you think it's embarrassing, well, go fly a kite, because who cares?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, your voice is going to be a caricature of someone in reality's vocal spectrum. Like, I could attempt to talk like Ben, and it probably will sound terrible because I'm American, and we just have entirely different slang, mannerisms, and speech patterns. But
I
it's a
take
character.
pride in teaching people my slang. The Yorkshire slang is well out.
I was going to say, it's got a lot of neat words in there and stuff. So
I'm very well spoken for a Yorkshire bloke, to be honest.
I was going to say, and to be fair, when you start talking about England, it's like every quarter mile has its own accent.
Pretty much. Because you can go to the country, and then you're talking about cider, and they're talking about that. And then you can go towards the more posh area, and they're all speaking. Oh, hello, how are you doing, old chap? And you got somewhere like Newcastle Lake.
Yeah, Geordies, those are the worst.
We're getting carried away again.
Hey, it's okay.
Well,
I
at
enjoy
least we stayed on topic.
I'm enjoying everybody showing off. Like it's
I could stay on a voice topic for like ever. I don't know if I could be as concise or advanced as Paul, but I could stay on this topic.
Having said that, I kind of want to wrap this up pretty soon here because it's getting late, and I'm going to hopefully do a little bit of reading before I go to sleep tonight. But I want to ask one more question, a personal question from me. To each of you. We'll go kind of one at a time, and then we'll wrap it up. Just a game that you either want to run or a game that you would like to play in, something that you haven't done before or you haven't seen done before anyway. If you guys are up for it. If you're not, you can pass. But Alex, I'll start. I'll just go down the list on my screen. Is there any game or genre or type or whatever that you'd like to run or play in that you haven't seen?
I would like to see some games of people trying the Magician's Game by Kyle Simons, because the thing that was that interests me about it is that you have to practice learning a different language, and it would be hilarious to hear people butcher a different language, like Korean.
Sweet. Yeah, that'd be a tough one for sure. All right.
The heavier guy.
Anthony, what about you? A game that you'd like to run or play in?
I'd like to try Fate, possibly. Try to get into it anyway.
Yeah. Any particular kind of setting or genre type that you'd like to play in it? Because Fate's pretty open. You can do just about anything in it.
Yeah, I know. I'd like to try something medieval, personally, but,
Okay.
I'm just open. It's a good game system, so.
What about you, Ben?
Personally, oh God, what haven't I tried? That's the problem. Is that I've run around and played a lot of things, mostly just out of morbid curiosity. I think the only thing I've stopped short of is Fatal, because I took one read of that and went no. Settings. I've always had an urge to play a very deep, gritty noir game. I've run plenty of those. I know the tropes like the back of my hand. I love steampunk, I love noir, I love all that sort of stuff. It's just, so the opportunity to play that sort of game for me has never really properly come up. It's come up, but it's always kind of been kind of the edge has been taken off because the players. A lot of people don't like the idea the game feels like it's entirely drenched in black and white as well as everything else. So yeah,
We,
I think a good.
we did a really good noir one recently that was run in Fate Core. I think it was Fate Core, wasn't it? And we deliberately set all of our cameras to black and white to add to the feel.
See, I always miss the interesting stuff.
Well, I'm sure it'll happen again. God, who ran that game? I'm trying to even remember now.
I know which one you're talking about, but I can't think of who it was.
It was Chepe because I got an.
I know Chepe was in it.
Yeah,
I got an invite because it was specifically. We talked and he was just like, "This is happening." I was like, "If I can turn up." Which obviously I did.
We can make it happen again though. It doesn't have to be the last Fate Noir game to be played. What about you, Chelsea?
That's interesting that you mentioned that because I'm working on a 1920s noir themed game that I'm going to be running personally, high fantasy though, so it won't be like, true to the world. But I actually want to run it in a system that Chris brought up to me. And yeah, he already knows about this, and I want to play it in the I'm going to say this wrong. It's like the apocalyptic system. I always say it wrong.
World.
Apocalypse World. That's it. So that's what I'm looking at doing very shortly.
Cool. How about yourself, Chris?
All right. So I mentioned it on my channel. I want to play a Power Rangers Super Sentai game, but there are no good ones that exist out there. You can do it with Palladium, and that's been the only game system that I've found that really supports it well. Hold on, I'm getting a finger. I might have a suggestion.
Look up a system called either OVA.
I've seen OVA.
Yeah, or if you can find an older system, Big Eye Small Mouth.
I didn't like Big Eye Small Mouth for it. I've done that one.
Not for everybody.
I was gonna say I've done that one. The D21 was okay for the Sentai characteristics, but it was too powerful. It just didn't make sense. So what I'm probably going to end up doing is hacking my own version, and then I'll be running it on my channel. Because if I can't find one I like, there's no reason that's stopping me from making one.
Feng Shui. Feng Shui might do it.
That would be the kind of game that I would like to play. There is another one out there called Tokyo Heroes, which uses a variant on 7C, and that one's okay, but not great. Their robot rules are very undefined, which is strange. As far as what I like to play that I haven't really put together too much of, I like mecha games in the classic Gundam Wing type drama mecha games, and so I'm putting together some using an Apocalypse World hack, going back to that one, called Souls of Steel. And as soon as I finish reading through the playtest, it will be a playtest game for the developer. And we'll actually have some one-shots of that going on. I'm planning for at least 3, but if it picks up in popularity, I may do like a whole chain of them until we get tired of
it. Christopher obviously didn't want to answer the question. He dropped out just before I got to him. So, Nelson, you're next.
Okay, so I have to choose only one, right?
Yeah.
That's the hard
part. You can go ahead and choose one that you'd like to run and one that you'd like to play in. Just
okay, a sort of genre or time era that I'd love to play in that doesn't need to be 100% true to the genre is, the 1920s, 1930s. It's something that doesn't get run enough, and I love it, I've got a character I love to play. Or a couple of characters I love to play set in that type of setting. I don't get to play enough of. As far as running, I tried to run a game show, a dungeon delving game show with Fate, and I really, really want to run that. I want to run a few game show games. It's just that I can't get enough interest or availability to really fill those games up. The game I ran, I had a chance to run in one game with only 2 players, but it was a blast to run. Is with Fate, using Fate Accelerated, called Let's Dungeon, where it's really it's a televised what is that genre called? Dungeon crawl? It's a televised dungeon crawl where they can cut to commercial break. So, that's one I really want to run. And since we can only choose one, I'll end there.
Okay. Yeah, I'll just leave it to one for now, so we don't go on for saying, everybody loves the guy that takes half an hour to say goodbye. Paul, how about yourself?
I'm going to run through these super quick. Engineero, Little Fears, Grey Rank, Shadowrun 5th Edition, World of Darkness, but in a Silent Hill setting I have, Call of Cthulhu, Idris Bay, Wraith of the Oblivion, Geist Sin Hunters, Aces and Eights, The New Frontier, and a noir-inspired Dick Tracy style 1930s to 50s game with magic becoming normal and Cthulhu elements based on the idea of Cast a Deadly Spell, a movie that you should watch.
Awesome.
See, and we need to bring out that. Oops, sorry.
I was just saying, actually, I remember talking with you. We talked for a good while, Paul, just you and I, if I recall, about the ideas of how we would do a Silent Hill game. So that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I was just going to say.
You had a lot of cool ideas.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Chelsea. I'll stop talking on you.
I'm so sorry. I interrupted you twice there, and I didn't mean to. I was just excited because that Boston smoker voice is like a character in my head, has become a character in my head for a role play, and her name is Marge, but everybody calls her Marge the Barge because she's just this big, hefty woman who just dresses so stylishly all the time, but just is like a pit bull with mayonnaise. I swear to God.
Yeah. One of my favorite characters is a guy named Fast Freddy, who I played in a Fate game in 1920s-ish. And he had you talk like this the whole game, and I had a lot of fun using his voice.
For myself, anyway, to answer my own question, I've actually had an idea for a while that I just haven't been able to get the right players in for. It's probably going to end up being a 2-player game, I'm thinking. It's going to be, I want to run a kind of a neo-noir eclipse phase game, basically involving 2 detectives or investigators of some sort anyway, hunting down a serial killer. But it's going to take place obviously in the the solar system of eclipse phase. So that's something I've been working on. I just want to make sure I get the right 2 guys in it, because if it's only going to have 2 players, we're going to have to make sure that we have people that can be strong, because they're going to have a lot of camera time, a lot of a lot of focus. And as far as playing in, I don't know that I really have any. I mean, there's a couple of different game systems maybe that I want to try out. I really want to play within the Ring of Fire. I bought all the books back around Christmas time, but I haven't had anybody to play it with yet, and I haven't had time anyway. I haven't read them or anything either. But so I suppose maybe that's probably one of the games I haven't played yet that I'm kind of eager to do sometime in the future. But yep, that's about it. So thanks everybody for coming in and joining the conversation today. I think we've been hanging out for about 3.5 hours now talking, so it's been really good. Thanks to everybody who came earlier and had to leave, and everybody we had a lot of people viewing, just watching it on YouTube, so that was a lot of fun. This is something that's probably going to happen again, and like I said before, it'll probably be popping up on different channels, because I know Chelsea is going to host one of these next week, right?
Yeah, next week. Mine will be monthly, starting next week Sunday. It'll be monthly on once a month on Sundays.
Cool. And I know, like, when ours was full up earlier, Robert Ogre started one of his own. I don't know how many people turned up for that or if he recorded or anything, but yeah, we'll do more GM chats very soon. So yeah, if just to plug real quick anyway, if you've been watching this, want to go ahead and like and subscribe to the channel. If you have any questions that weren't answered, feel free to throw them up on the Tabletop RPG One-Shot group on Facebook, or put them down in the comments down below, and I'll try my best to answer them if I can. But yeah, there's a lot of great people over in the OSG that are happy to help out new game masters and new players. Yeah, so just join in on the conversation. Anybody else want to say anything before we go?
Peace out.
See you later. Bye-bye.
See you.
All right, good night.